Republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Please remain standing for a moment of silence in honor of our veterans, servicemen and women, and those who have given the ultimate sacrifice. The clerk will call the roll.
Councillor Anderson. Councillor Kamel. Councillor Condon. Councillor Crowe. Councillor Di Maria. Councillor Matheson. Councillor Murphy. Councillor O'Malley. Councillor Spadafora. Councillor Winslow. President Council Sika.
Here.
All here.
The council would like to invite Pastor Whetstone from the First Church of the Nazarene to appear before the council to give an update of the Malden's new warming center.
Good evening, and thank you for the opportunity to come and share with you about an exciting collaborative effort in our city to service a segment of our community that is often neglected or forgotten, the homeless. I am, as you heard, Pastor Jerry Whetstone. I am the pastor of the Church of the Nazarene and also serving as the director of the center. About a year or so ago, the mayor and I and others were chatting about what might be a need that the church might be able to help the city meet. One of the first things he shared was regarding the homeless. As a church, we began prayerfully considering what could we do and if we could do anything. One of the things that we found ourselves doing was looking to the Bible, which we in our Christian faith do. And in Genesis, we find that there's a question that Cain, who had killed his brother, asked God. And it states, "Am I my brother's keeper?" We found ourselves answering that question in the affirmative. Yes, we are. We have a responsibility, especially to those who might not be as fortunate as we are. And so we began to launch and shared with the mayor and other city officials about the launching of the center. And there's been a wonderful collaborative effort that has come together to make it happen. We started out on the first week, we started on January 1st. We started out with an average of 6 people each evening. The next week it went up to an average of 13, and last week we averaged 21 guests in the center. And last night was, on that frigid night, we found that because of our later opening at 8, some of them were able to find places before we opened, and so they did so, which was wise on their part. But we had, I think it was 13 last night too. Even as we speak right now, there's a host of volunteers, for this is a fully volunteer operation. Everyone is volunteering their time. And I would encourage you to consider the 1 to 6 a.m. shift if you'd like to do that. That's the one that we find a little difficult, but people have been sacrificing and giving. The type of resources that have come to us and the support of the city and the city officials and civic organizations has been wonderful. We're learning some things along the way, and we know that there's a need of being sure that this is a first step. It's one thing to provide a warm place and a safe place for them, but it's another thing to say, okay, then how can we resource you to not be in this situation any longer so we don't have to come here? And that's something that we need to work diligently on, and we seek help from the city and from civic organizations in accomplishing that, to bring together resources that would be available even at the center at times, so that they could come and find out how they can proceed to find housing and or employment. We appreciate Paul's involvement and his resourcing in regards to recovery and recovery coaching. We were talking a little bit tonight, and we believe that there's already 3 that have shown interest in moving into a recovery program of some sort. And so we're excited about that, and also the fact that we can resource for transportation, and he does such a great job of that and being sure that we can get homeless people there. You have been handed a form that tells you a little bit about us and about, I say us because it is a collaborative effort. It is, there have been faith organizations. The city, as we said, has been a wonderful help There have been many organizations that have come, even in the very beginning when we started the organizing and planning committees. The number of people that came out was astounding. It was very exciting. On there, you have, on the back side is where we have the full purpose and mission. And I would like to take an opportunity just to read through that. I'm not trying to insult your intelligence, but I think it's important for us to hear it as well as read it. So if you would follow along with me. The Malden Warming Center seeks to serve those experiencing homelessness by providing safe shelter and warmth, recognizing each person's inherent dignity and unique circumstances. The Malden Warming Center is to be a temporary night center for those who are homeless to be welcomed and find a place of warmth during the harshest winter months. The Malden Warming Center welcomes people experiencing active substance abuse and offers safe storage, no search of the individual's belongings, a place of warmth, comfort, hot drinks, warm soup. As such, as much as possible, warm clothing may be available, and staff will work to connect individuals to needed services, including more permanent housing, substance use treatment, and or mental health services. So there you have it in a nutshell. That's what the Malden Warming Center is all about. It's already in full operation for this evening, and we have been able to provide a tremendous amount of clothing for them, for the homeless, and they have shown great appreciation for it. There are, I'll end with this and offer, if you have any questions for me, I'd be glad to try to answer them. But two things that I'd like to offer. One is that we're still figuring out just what the cost of this is. So you may be hearing from me again when I'm saying, okay, where can I go to find some resources? But so far we've been able to have that through donations and otherwise. And then also, there are 3 people that are alive today because of the center. One had overdosed, and we were able to use Narcan, and 2 others had gotten sick from overdose. Though we didn't need to use Narcan, we were able to get them immediate assistance, which I appreciate the police and all of the first responders coming so quickly to the center to help them. And so not only are they getting warm, but we're also providing a safe place for them where they can get help if they need it. So thank you for the opportunity. Any questions, I'd be glad to entertain them.
Councilor Anderson.
Yes, thank you, Madam President. Pastor, thank you very much for your presentation, and I think we're all very excited about what is going on down relating to a need that is certainly apparent, and you guys have just taken the bull by the horns, and so congratulations on that. You mentioned the need for volunteers, and you mentioned the shift that's probably most difficult to fill, the 1 a.m. to 6 a.m. Can you describe what you would be looking for? What kind of skill set would you be looking for volunteers at a shift like that? What are they?
The quickest way to say that is the skill set is, if you really care, we'll train you. We actually have a training session coming up this Saturday. We've had 2 training sessions where we walk them through. It is essentially being hospitable. It's a place to show and practice hospitality. And so if you're willing to be there and there are some skills in regards to personal interaction.
Okay.
There's also the need at times that you might need to, if there's aggressive behavior or if there's conflict resolution, we include some of that in our training to give them some ideas about that. But the skill set really comes down to being someone who really cares and wants to care for people. And we'll provide some of the training. The other skill sets that we're working on is there's CPR, there's administering Narcan, there is seeing signs that you might need to. They're all in the training, and we continue to add to that as we go along.
So you described that, would you say we do that? You have supervisors, I would assume, that would be supervising the volunteers?
Well, the volunteers, there's one volunteer that's considered the shift leader. And
okay.
They're individuals that have gone through the training.
Yep.
And the volunteers sign up for their shifts on their own, and then we just kind of balance it out as best possible at this point. But we don't have any paid employees or shift supervisors.
Right.
And so, for example, I myself typically open up and then go back at 1 when they do the shift change to be sure that everybody's comfortable with what's happening and that they have the training they need.
Well, I know that some of the counselors on board have already been doing some volunteer work.
Yes,
and
I
so
know.
again,
I'm very thankful for that.
very good. So thank you very much.
Yeah.
Thank you, Madam President.
Councilor Di Maria.
Thank you, Madam President, and thank you, Pastor, for coming in front of us this evening.
Thank you.
And as Councilor Anderson said, there are some of us councilors that have had the privilege of being there. I was there on Thursday night with your wife, worked
Yes.
the kitchen, and I have to say it really changed my life. It
Yes, thank
really
you.
did. There were all walks of life there, men, women, black, white, Hispanic, and they were so grateful to be in a warm place with some food in their belly. And I just think it's absolutely wonderful that you came to this somewhat of a solution for our homeless in Malden. I personally would like to see it continue for the month of March, so if...
I'm working on that.
Okay.
Yes.
That's great.
It's been asked, and some of it has to be, our church leaders are actually looking at it and trying to figure it out. We haven't got our first electric bill yet with the increased electric and some of those types of things. So, but we also need to get a commitment from our volunteers. And so this week there'll actually be a survey going out saying, would you be willing to continue on if we go into March?
Oh, great.
So,
That's
yes.
great. Thank you
Yeah.
again. Thank you, Madam President.
Thank you.
Councilor Matheson.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you, Pastor Whetstone. I can't think of a better time for you to be giving this presentation. It's freezing out there, and I can only imagine how much appreciation you must be seeing and receiving, and I can't think of a better way to answer God's call that we be our brother's keeper than to keep each other warm and alive. So bravo to you. I do hope that we can keep it open as much as it could serve the community. I do know that we have community development block grant money that does go to some services, such as feeding the homeless. I can imagine that would be well served going to keeping them warm and alive as well.
Thank you. I'm still looking for places that we can resource, and we do provide them nourishment. We do have, we serve them soup and breads, and then they also have...
And you do turkeys on Thanksgiving, do you not?
Yes, well, for 10 years, our church has sponsored a free Thanksgiving dinner on Thanksgiving Day. Yes.
That's First Church of the Nazarene is where I went as a kid, and I learned a lot of my values.
With the
going
sunshine,
there.
I take it.
Met some great people. Yeah. Well, anyway, I just wanted to give you my heartfelt thanks and congratulations.
I appreciate that.
Okay, and I'll be in touch to help you find funding if you need it. Let's work together.
Excellent. Sounds great.
All right, bye-bye.
Councilor O'Malley.
Thank you. Thank you very much for coming out tonight and for everything that you're doing at the Church of the Nazarene. I know that you have a number on your flyer here. Is that the best number for or potential volunteers to call to sign up? Or
Yes. Actually, the best way to sign up is to go to the website.
Okay.
I mean, you're welcome to call, but then I'll basically walk you through and direct you to the website.
So just so everyone knows, I'll say the website. It's http :// Nazarene NAZARENE.com. Is
Right.
that correct?
Yep.
Very
And they
good.
go there and they'll get some direction. And if they can't find it, then just give that call and we'll make sure we follow up with them.
So earlier tonight, I actually went on to the Google Doc that you have,
Right.
and I did sign up for some shifts. So I'm looking forward to getting
Wonderful.
out there and seeing it in action.
I appreciate it.
Thank you.
One of the powerful things that's happening here, and one of the things that we want to accomplish, is we want to humanize the people. In many cases, as you know, you deal with it, people all of a sudden get lumped into this group, and all of a sudden they're dehumanized. They're the homeless out there. And one of the things that was mentioned is the stories as you sit. Now, sometimes those stories you hear 3 or 4 times in a night, maybe 5 or 6 times in a night, but they're stories. And I remember the one person was sitting with one of our guests, and when they walked away, they said the person at one point just said to me, "It's so nice to have someone listen to me." Even though we didn't have any answers, the fact that they had a warm place and were able to sit across from someone who looked them eye to eye and said, "You're a person that I want to listen to." So it's an amazing opportunity for people to see other people and to humanize those people that often are just lumped into this category.
Councilor Murphy.
Thank you, Madam President, and welcome, Pastor Whetstone. I just wanted to go over a couple of things,
Sure.
just to make sure, because we are on the air tonight. So in addition to just speaking to us, you are speaking to the, anyone listening on MATV.
Wonderful.
So the training, you said, is going to take place this coming Saturday?
Yes, it is.
And could you explain the timing and where it's going to be held, and if someone has to sign up ahead of time, or can they just stop into the training?
Thanks for doing that. Unfortunately, I had a death in my church of one of the pillars of our congregation. And so the original intention was to have it at the warming center. So we're actually working to pick a new site. But it's going to happen this Saturday from 10 to noon. And no one has to sign up for it. If they just want to come to find out information and walk through the training, they're welcome to do that. We'll be sending out an email tomorrow to say this is where the location has been changed to because of the funeral that's happening on Saturday.
And it will be posted on your website?
Yes, we'll post it.
And could you repeat once again, in case someone didn't have a pen and paper in
Yes.
their hands, what the website
The easiest is just Malden Nazarene, MaldenNazarene.com.
Okay, thank you. The other thing that I just wanted to say, because I know Councilor Crowe and I went together, we're partners in crime on a lot of things these days, it seems like. And as we talked the week before we went down, we were, didn't know what we were getting into. We didn't know what it was going to be like. And, you really, I think some people might not come because they don't know what to expect. And what I would say to anyone listening who really feels they want to look at this is go down to the warming center some night. You don't have to sign up. Sure. You could just stop in and see what's going on. And I think you'll be pleasantly surprised that it's a very welcoming environment where there's just a lot of friendship, a lot of camaraderie going on. And you will find that you'll just kind of embrace it. So if you're if you think you might want to do it, but you're a little bit afraid, stop down at 8 o'clock or 9 o'clock and just go in and say hi to everybody, and I'll guarantee you'll probably be signing up for a shift shortly thereafter. So thank you. And thank you for coming before us.
Thank you. And people are more than welcome, as you said, to come. In fact, we've had some who were a little leery about volunteering and came and sat for an hour or so, and then before the night was out, they had signed up for a couple of shifts.
Exactly. So thank you.
It can be a little frightening, because you're not knowing. And again, we do have active substance abusers, and so people get a little anxious. But again, the training helps with that, as well as the fact you're never alone. There's always other staff that are there. And so we always have there's never less than 2. We try to have at least 3 or more staff that are there. So it's a collaborative effort, and the people are people. And most often we have found they have been nothing but appreciative of being able to come and be able to have a warm, safe place for the night.
Councilor Spadafora.
Thank you, Madam President. Thank you, Pastor. I don't want to repeat what all the other councils said, but great work.
Thank you.
Organizations like yourself and the Bread of Life are out there and providing a service that unfortunately we need to provide, but it's great to have organizations like that in the city of Malden. And just to continue on what the other council said, volunteerism, it does become a little bit of a creature of habit. I volunteered my first time at the Bread of Life 9 years ago, and it was something that I did not want to do. I was actually tricked into going, and I've never missed a Thanksgiving there, and it's something that really makes my Thanksgiving special. So I completely agree with the council who said go and just try it out, because I think once you sit there and you realize how lucky we are, and a little bit of time out of their day is not much to ask. But again, I want to commemorate you and all your hard work and the volunteers, but everybody else has been telling you to repeat that website. But I also think it's important that you mention not only do you need bodies on the flyer that we have the benefit of looking at in front of you, you're asking for donations that range from always money, monetarily, all the way to food, clothing, and toiletries. So I think that should be mentioning on TV too, because maybe somebody can't come out and work these hours, but they can also write a check, or there are other ways to help drop off some of the supplies listed on here. So I think it's worth mentioning from you the type of supplies that you might accept and might need.
Yes, and thank you for that.
Thank you.
We've had tremendous people that have responded. At the moment, probably our greatest need is for thermal underwear. for both male and female. That's important, especially in these cold nights when during the day they're still out there in the cold. We've had an abundance of other supplies that have come in from various organizations as well. The monetary is a deep need right now, and they can give through the church, and then it becomes a tax deductible if somebody wants to do that. Again, if you go to that MaldenNazarene.com, there's a giving, hit giving, and then it says Malden Warming Center. They can give that way. And then there's also, if people want to provide snacks and things, we've had a couple of church organizations and that have created goodie bags so that every morning they leave with something to drink and breakfast bars or candy or cookies that they can take along with them. And then if you come down, you'll be able to see that we have a storage room that's full, that's filling up rather quickly of our supplies, and we'll welcome them. But we also have them displayed in the center itself. So when they're there, they can come up and look through the items, and there's just a lot of good supplies for them. So thanks for noting that, and I appreciate it.
Thank you. Councilor Crowe?
Thank you, Madam President. I don't want to be redundant, but it really is sort of a thank you for actually putting your church out and to do this. It is an endeavor, absolutely. But as Councilor Murphy said, and Councilor DeMaria, just being down there and actually talking to the people that come there and hearing some of their stories, whatever, was really very humbling in many ways. And along with the donations that Councilor Spatafora had mentioned, the night we were there, there was actually a need for women's clothing. People forget that women are homeless too.
Right.
And actually that night was almost a 50-50, how many
and
men to women.
That's been about the norm. Yeah.
Right. So, and I think that's really important because there was a lot of large clothing for men, but a woman that was there who had not had the opportunity to change clothes in a number of days was really desperate for some,
right.
some sweatshirts and sweat clothing to keep them warm. So I appreciate all that you've done, and I know that Councilor Murphy has already signed us up again. So
Very good.
And I look forward to spending more time there.
Excellent. Thank you.
Oh, go ahead.
I was going to say that it is important for people to know that it has been about 50-50 as far as men and women are concerned. And then also what some people might like to know is the range of age. And that's what surprises a lot of people. There's one gentleman that comes in with his mother, and I haven't been able to quite get it down. She's either 76 or 82. I'm not sure which. In fact, last night he came in without her, and I asked him, is she okay? And she had been hospitalized because she had taken a fall. But we don't often think of someone being that age being homeless, and that here's this mother and her son, and that goes all the way down to I think the youngest that we have is probably in the late 20s. So you get that range there. They come in as couples, they come in as individuals, and they're all different ages and all different walks of life that have just through sometimes poor decisions of their own, and other times from things that have been thrust upon them. They find themselves in a homeless situation, and we're just thankful that we can be there to be our brother and sister keeper. And if I could stress too that for me and for our church, we're already beginning to ask ourselves, how can we better take the next step to provide resources and help them to get out of their situation? And that's a whole nother level of funding, as well as getting some of our organizations to begin to be present so that they could help with that. Because we don't have that expertise. Mr. Neil Anderson was asking about what kind of criteria. We can't train everybody to be a resource to know how to work the ins and outs of who to contact or what to contact. And ABCD has been helpful, has sent us some paperwork, and Elliot has been involved, and a few others have helped us in the organization. But now we need to take that next step to be sure, okay, then how can we get resources on site and people who can direct people? And as I said, Paul has been great with the addiction recovery aspect because he has that expertise there and can direct people. But we just need to do that on some kind of level. And we've also reached out to some others with regard to flu shots and hepatitis shots, as well as maybe once a week or once every other week providing some medical, just a quick overlook of someone medically if they want it. So we're trying to get those into place as well, and if you have any resources or contacts, welcome aboard. It really is a collaborative effort. Our church could not do it on its own, and so I want to be sure that we make it clear that it's not just us. We have the facilities, and we're blessed with those, and we want to make sure we use them wisely. And they are very supportive. Our entire congregation is very supportive, willing to take some of the bite of the financial if they have to in order to make it happen. But the reality is that it's been a collaborative effort all the way around, and so I don't want it to look like it's just us. It really is us in the community sense of Malden, and we appreciate that. And I'm not sure if you're aware of it, but this is the first time in history that there's been a warming center or anything for the homeless in the city of Malden. And not only that, if you look at our surrounding cities of Everett and Medford and Melrose and Revere, it is my understanding that there is nothing for the homeless in those towns either, those cities either. And so we've already understand that there's been chatter that can we bring them there? And I've had phone calls from several of the police departments in the neighboring towns and cities asking, could we bring our people to there if we need to? And our doors are open. We're practicing hospitality. So we don't necessarily ask them where they're from, though we try to look to Malden first, but we just want to care for people.
Thank you. On behalf of the chair, I had the pleasure of meeting you and your wife yesterday as I dropped off 2 large trash bags of women's clothing.
Yes, you
Thanks
did.
to Councilor Murphy, who told me you were in need. I got to do a little closet cleaning this past weekend, and I just wanted to reiterate a few things that the other my fellow councilors had said. When I went to the church yesterday, you happen to be open, but you're not open normal 9 to 5 hours. So you suggested anybody that has a donation of food, clothing, they give you a call before they come.
Right, and then the telephone number that's on there, I don't have it, it's 781-324-4230. I should know my own number,
You
right?
should know your number.
It's number 2, you know. 781-324-4230. You can call ahead of time. The preschool, we have a preschool that's there that's in operation all the time, but we don't want people going through that and bothering them. But my administrative assistant is on part-time, so there's not always somebody there, so it's always best to check. And we'll arrange to make sure that there's someone there if they can bring things over.
Perfect.
So.
And I just want to thank Councilor Murphy for inviting you to come and speak in front of us
Well, I
this
thank
evening.
you for the invite. I was very honored and have been honored, and I thank you again for the city support that we've been receiving and for this
Great.
opportunity.
We look forward to helping you in the future.
Thank you.
Okay, we have another guest. On behalf of the Citizen Engagement Committee with Councilor DiMaria, along with Public Safety Chair Steve Winslow, we have a representative for the Malden Police Department to appear before the council to discuss and warn members of the community to be aware of the potential scams originating through Facebook and Google. On behalf of the Malden Police Department. Hold on, sorry. Sorry, Sergeant Powell. Go ahead.
Thank you, Madam President, and the rest of the city councilors. Thank you for having me here. Hopefully I can enlighten some of the folks here, as well as in the community, in regards to some recent scams that have been going on. I just want to preface this with, these are not new scams. They've been around for a long time, but what happens is they go away and tend to resurface from time to time. So a good way to combat or to get ahead of some of this is just to be aware of some of the scams themselves. So I'll just read a few of the scams, or the more common scams that are going on right now. There are tons of them out there, but these are the ones that we're kind of seeing the most. And I'll just take a few minutes of your time. One most recently was the threat scam, in which individuals will get a hold of some of your personal information by surfing on some fringe sites, meet apps, sites of that nature. So the most important thing with all of these scams is don't give out your personal information. And if you are going to give out your information, make sure you know who you're talking to. That's probably the best advice I can give you in regards to these scams. So the threat scam is the most recent one we're seeing. And again, it's been around for a while, but this most recent one, threat scams, is concerning because they're sending out very graphic photos that obviously would alarm most people. What they do is in this particular scam itself, they'll lead you to believe you're speaking to, and the ones that we're seeing, you're speaking to a female. You're trying to set yourself up with a date, get information. Essentially, they'll grab some of your personal information, maybe your real name, and address, and what they'll do is they'll surf social media for some photos, and they'll send you some of your personal photos leading you to believe that they know who you are, and that's how they're scamming people out of money. So again, if you don't know who you're talking to on the internet or even over the phone, do not give out your personal information first and foremost. Another one that we've been seeing that's really common is the IRS scam, and I'm sure a lot of folks have heard about that one. Again, with this particular one, what people are doing is they're calling people, leading them to believe that they're IRS agents, and they're asking you to send money to them in the form of gift cards of some sort. There is no government agency that I know of, and maybe somebody can educate me, but there is no government agency that I know of that is going to request money via gift cards. And if you do have any concerns, you can always reach out to Malden PD or just a loved one and say, and talk it over. Because many times, again, unless somebody can educate me, there is no government agency that is going to request personal information or request that you send them money via gift cards. It's just not going to happen. Another one that we're seeing is the grandparents' telephone scam. This one is essentially targeting the senior citizen community, and they're tricking folks into believing that a loved one got arrested, and they're requesting that you send them bail money. Again, no law enforcement agency or someone representing themselves as law enforcement, they're not going to request that you send them money in any form. And if you ever have any concerns in regards to information or somebody that you're speaking to, reach out to the police, or again, reach out to a loved one and ask. And another thing that you can do is ask for a number, ask for a phone number, and say, do you have a business phone number that I can have that I can call you back? Take that phone number, and you can be an investigator yourself. Go on Google, put that number in Google, and you'll be surprised on what comes up. So I will just leave you folks with just some pointers, and I won't take up much more of your time. So these are just tips to protect yourself from becoming an online scam victim. First and foremost, be alert to the fact that scams exist. That's number one. Be certain you know who you're dealing with, whether it's via the internet or on the phone. Don't open suspicious texts, suspicious emails. If you don't know where the emails are from, the text messages are from, disregard it, toss it, delete it. Don't respond to calls from your computer asking for remote access. Don't do it. Take it to Best Buy and have the text there work it out. Keep your personal details secure. Again, that's a big one. Keep your personal details secure. That'll alleviate a lot of the problems that we're seeing with some of these scams. Keep your mobile devices and computers secure. Review privacy and security settings on social media. Be wary of unusual payment requests, as I pointed out to the fact that no government agency or law enforcement agency is going to request funds to be sent to them. Most importantly, if you don't take anything from what I'm saying, take this. Do not give any personal information over the internet, online or over the phone. So I will leave you folks with that. If you have any questions, I'll try to answer them.
Councilor O'Malley.
Thank you very much, Sergeant, for coming out tonight. In this day and age, where everything's on the internet, what kind of personal information should we be trying to get off the internet or keep off the internet?
Anything that can be traced back to your true identity. Obviously, if you're using sites like Facebook, sometimes they require you to use certain information, but you can still safeguard yourself by setting security or parameters when it comes to the security of that particular site. And every site has some security parameters that you should follow.
So like photos of family and friends and things like that, photos of your children, these things could be used against you potentially.
They can certainly be used against you. And again, I know a lot of folks use sites like Facebook to communicate with family or loved ones in other countries and in other states. So I'm certainly not suggesting that you avoid sharing photos, but what I'm saying is you can set safety parameters to avoid people from getting a hold of sensitive information via your address, your date of birth, stuff like that.
Thank you.
Councilor DiMaria.
Thank you, Madam President, and thank you, Sergeant, for coming in front of us tonight. I'm so grateful. As I was watching a local news broadcast, I saw Mark Gatcomb on Fox Channel, and I was like, oh, great, for Malden, they're warning the state. So we can never be educated enough, so I really thank you for coming out this evening.
No problem at all.
Yep. Councilor Winslow.
Yeah. Thank you, Sergeant, so much for coming up. I know we are all inundated in terms of phone calls we don't know there people from, and so many emails and texts. So it is really important to be on guard. Can you, so people who have questions for the police, they just get a hold of you through the just the general police number? Is there a special unit they might ask for, or if they have any questions in particular?
Yeah, so if you have questions or you feel that something is not right, red flags go up, feel free to call the Malden Police Detective Line, and we can kind of share some of our insight in regards to what seems suspicious and what does not. But again, anytime, and still, when you engage in an activity over the internet, there's always that risk. But there are certainly a lot of things that you can do to kind of negate some of those issues.
Are there any like websites or resources like through the Attorney General's office like you might be looking at to kind of keep on top of scams that a member of the public might be looking at just to keep
so you can actually go to the IRS website, and they have some information in regards to identity fraud or suspicious activity. FBI, you can go to the FBI website, and they have a lot of helpful information that can kind of make you more aware of what's going on in regards to identity theft and fraud and suspicious activity in regards to the internet.
All right, thank you very much. Great.
Councilor Murphy.
Hi. Thank you so much for coming in. And I just have, when you're talking about personal information, because someone told me this years ago when I first set up my Facebook account. Everybody loves to be wished happy birthday, but the person said to me, never put your birthday out on Facebook. So inevitably, somebody always wishes me happy birthday on that day, and obviously, if you went back and looked at it, you'd figure out, what the date was. But is that something you would advise people when they're setting up their Facebook account not to do, to not put your birthday out there, or just curious?
Yeah, again, the less is better. But again, obviously, people use a lot of these social media platforms to kind of keep in touch with loved ones and people you haven't seen in a long time. So again, I'm certainly not suggesting that you don't keep in contact with your loved ones if they're wishing you a happy birthday. I'm not saying that people should not do that,
Right.
but you don't have to disclose your whole date of birth on social media. Keep it as simple as happy birthday. If they know the particular day, it is what it is. But that's fine. But I wouldn't go beyond that, as far as, disclosing your whole date of birth on, that's when we throw the red flags up.
I was just saying, like, every day I open my email and it's like 8 people's birthdays are listed there, and I was, as I said, I was told early on by an IT person, don't put your birthday on Facebook, so just a little.
Smart. It's very, very smart thing to do.
Just a little warning. Like I said, someone always, pardon me? Oh. So anyway, thank you.
Thank you. Councilor Spatafora?
Thank you, Madam President. Thank you, Sergeant, for coming. I wasn't going to mention it, but I figured I would. In my day job, cybersecurity is probably one of the biggest threats to every industry, not just personally, but recently there's been some stats out there that they're not scams necessarily, but a lot of people now are using public Wi-Fi. And what potential criminals are doing are they're breaking into your phone or your computer, they're hacking into Starbucks, et cetera, all these places, and they're going into your emails and they're finding out people save their emails with their passwords. They sign up for Facebook, you get the initial email, they don't change them. And they're doing this with iTunes and all these other, any type of, commercially, largely accepted service provider, and they usually send back an email, gives them their email address. Sometimes they give them the last 4 digits of certain areas. So I think it's important to tell the public. Obviously, they have to be on the lookout for people trying to proactively take stuff from them. But I think when they're in the public domain, and Wi-Fi is essentially everywhere now, the criminals have gotten very good to know where to go. And I had one at one point. I had a file on my email that said passwords. I put all my passwords in a file. So I think it's worth noting to the public that sometimes you have to be careful where it goes in terms of your devices. That's why a lot of places now, they make you put a picture or they make you put something else on your computer. It's called a multi-factor authentication because they want to make sure they're talking to the person that actually has the right device or the right computer. So that is probably going to be the next area, I think, unfortunately, for theft is that, especially with everything going. I mean, most banks today, you're going online for banking, and that's where they see the fraud happening.
Right.
But I appreciate this information. I think it's very useful. Unfortunately, it's always timely, but I think it's a good way to remind the public.
Right. Yep.
Thank you, Sergeant.
Thank you.
Councilor Anderson?
Thank you, Madam President. Sergeant Powell, thank you for being here this evening.
Glad to be here.
This is a very important topic for all of us, and I'd like to drill down a little bit on what it is that you're talking about. We're kind of, as the discussion is taking place here, it's almost taken for granted that people will understand why you feel that giving someone's date of birth on a line like that is so damaging. So could you go into a little detail about why is giving a person's date of birth? I can understand why you would say, let's not give a social security number, but why not give a beta? What's the harm in that? Could you just explain that to old people like me who may not understand all these nuances of online?
Sure, and I will certainly try to explain it to the best of my ability, and I guess the best answer I have for that is the more information that individuals have on you, as individuals I'm referring to that engaged in illegal activity. The more information that they have on you, they can actually search. There are a bunch of search engines that they can use. They can punch in your name, your date of birth. Now they have your address, and so when they have your address and they want to get a little deeper, they can certainly go by your house, go through your mail, take out certain mail that they want. Let's say you're expecting a credit card. So it's just, the more information that these folks have on you, the more damaging it could be, and that's why I say it's very important to safeguard all of your personal.
Well, I guess what I've seen, if you go to Google and you type in your name and you ask Google to search your name, it's going to bring up much of the information that you're saying that we should be guarding against. I mean, I punch in my name, and all of a sudden I see all the people who have the similar names, and the addresses are there, the date of births are there, where you went to school. Much of that information is just so public that it seems like like it's so easily available without any real safeguards that anyone would put on it.
Yeah,
Am I oversimplifying?
No, and unfortunately, the world we live in today, it is very easy to obtain a lot of information just simply by typing your name and date of birth into a system. And that's not the only way that folks are getting a hold of sensitive information. There are actually people that sell sensitive information via the dark net. So they don't just get it from that, but I think you want to make it as difficult as possible in regards to people obtaining your information.
I was surprised. A year or so ago, I helped my oldest daughter move across country. She moved from here to the Los Angeles area, and she thought that she had a sublet on an apartment that fell through. So here we were out in Los Angeles trying to figure out now where, she's got her furniture sent out there. She thought she had an apartment that fell through. So how do you find another apartment? I was amazed when I saw her go online and find an address of an apartment that was described and the picture of the apartment. And so we drove by and drove to the location and saw this beautiful neighborhood and nice house and so forth, and the image of the home and the number and so forth. And you go up and knock on the door, and the people who live there are saying, no, you got the right place, but this is not for rent. And what was being asked in the announcement of this was for someone to send a deposit.
Yep.
So I was just dumbfounded when I saw what looked like a legitimate offer, for an apartment with the picture of the home and the address and all of that, and just send us a $500 deposit to hold things for you, and
And we're certainly seeing instances where people are being asked to send a check, and fall into situations like you're referring to. They get there and it's already occupied, but that check is now gone.
Well, thank you for that. One further comment I would make. How long have you been a sergeant?
3 years, sir.
3 years. It seems like just yesterday when Patrolman Mike Powell became the first person of color to become a senior officer at the Malden Police Department. And I remember Chief Molis was just so proud of his efforts in helping break the color barrier, if you will. You become the Jackie Robinson of the Malden Police Department of moving in to be a superior officer. So, welcome, Sergeant, and thank you for your presentation tonight. We're all very proud of you.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you.
Councilor O'Malley.
Councilor Crowe asked me how I'm going to follow that. And, one of the other things I thought of as Councilor Anderson was speaking is I know one of the ways that I've seen people get scammed is through selling things on Craigslist or Facebook. And I know that one of the things that people say to do is if you're going to exchange items, do it in a public place. Is the Malden Police Department or is the Malden Police Station a place where people can exchange items like that if they're selling things on Craigslist or Facebook?
Yeah. If folks want to use the Malden Police Department facility,
community room,
the parking lot, or even the community room, as long as it's not being used, we certainly wouldn't be opposed to that. I think that's probably a safer alternative than meeting someone you don't know, in a dark alley and one of the side streets of Malden. So usually, and that you make a good point, because if you're going to engage in illegal activity and you ask this person to meet you at a facility, Malden PD, and they don't want to come, and it's probably an indication that that it's probably not a good deal. So certainly, if they feel safer coming to the parking lot of Malden PD, or even if they want to go an extra step and the community room's not being used, I don't see an issue. I would rather have that than somebody get bamboozled.
I'm sure that's very comforting for our residents, so I appreciate that.
Yeah.
Thank you.
No further questions, so you are free to go. Thank you so much, Sergeant Powell, for coming out.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Yeah, that was funny, right? Okay, next order of business. The Water Department and the DPW will appear before the City Council to discuss the lead pipe replacement within the city.
Good evening, Madam President, members of the City Council. You all have some packets that we put together. I'm just going to take you real quick through the packet, and then we have Director Yem Lip here, Bob Knox, and Gary Stead from the Engineering Department to answer your specific questions. We also have Debbie Burke here from the MRA. Everyone knows that we're under a consent order that we executed back in March of 2017 that required us to complete 150 lead pipe replacements per year. And that was an executive order from the Mass DEP. Collaboratively, the DPW, the Water Department, and the Engineering Department have been working to meet that requirement and have actually exceeded it in the last 2 years. And that's been the goal of the team, to exceed that requirement. I think the first papers you have in your packet are the list of streets that were completed in 2017. There was actually 174 full replacements. I think you also have a list of streets from 2018 when we completed 233 full replacements. In 2017, the inventory we had on our GIS system showed 3,022 lead lines on the public side, and that number is now down to 2,615. We've also completed testing in all the schools. Although there are no lead pipes going into our schools, some of the brass fixtures we found had some small traces of lead. So in those instances, sometimes we even replaced the fixture and we still found small traces. So in those instances, we either took that faucet out of service or found a replacement that did not show any traces of lead. Some of the challenges have been our records. The accuracy of our records have not always proven to be accurate. But that is now, the good news is, because of the new processes we have in place, those records are now becoming more accurate and we can depend on them more moving forward. Still, the major challenge is replacing the lead lines on the private side. That is still where our biggest challenge lies. And hopefully at some point we can revisit coming up with some incentives for the homeowners to want to change their lead service. Also, as part of the consent order, we were required to do an educational implementation of an educational plan, which we did. We did a campaign for Get the Lead Out, and we did PSAs, we did notice in the water bills, we did even notices in the little block on your water bill. We got the schools involved and gave information to the Parent Information Center in several languages, and as a result, that led to quite a few people coming in and getting their water tested, and also some of them did replace their lead lines. We're finding that nowadays people are more apt to change their lead line than it was maybe 5 or 6 years ago, which is a good thing. And then the other thing we also did is on C-Click Fix, that app now includes a place where you can go on and request to have your water tested, and that goes directly to the engineering department. The other change has been the ordinance that was put in effect, as everyone knows, that requires certification that a water supply does not has lead-free water lines, and that's triggered by 3 events, which is the sale of the property, when you apply for a building permit with a project value over $30,000, and at the time of transfer of a tenant in an owner non-occupied multifamily property. This ordinance actually took quite a bit of time to implement and enforce because it involved several different departments, it involved several meetings. You'll see in your packet that we do have, we had to draft certification forms, a process, and then we had to do all kinds of notices. Again, we used the water bill. We went to the mayor's quarterly realtor meetings and actually went to quite a few of those to get the information out. And then we had to perfect a process so that it all kind of fell in line. The engineering department did unbelievable work and to get that process perfected. And I think now even the realtors know exactly what they need to do once they have a property that is going to be sold here in Malden. Let's see. And then as far as what we've been spending the time on is that first piece of the ordinance, which is the sale of properties. That's sort of our phase 1. And now that we've kind of got that in line, we are going to start thinking about how to implement the next 2 phases of that ordinance and work with the building department to start getting that in effect. And speaking with the building commissioner, I think he's here tonight, he can speak to it as well. That piece might be a little bit more difficult to enforce and withhold permits, but we're going to take it a step at a time and come back to this body once we have the glitches that come up. So now, if there's any questions, I can turn it over to the directors.
We have a few questions.
And Debbie Burke is here as well. In the packet, there's also flyers that the MRA has been doing a great job promoting the programs they have through the home funds and also through CDBG. And actually some homeowners have taken advantage of that.
Okay. Councilor Condon.
Thank you. Thank you, Maria, for coming before us. You're doing a terrific job with that program. I was going to ask you, there's a lot of seniors, I think, out there that, is there a step-by-step process that they could possibly call somebody to identify whether or not they have lead in their line?
Yes, I believe if they call the engineering department, someone will go out and do a visual inspection. And
you'll send someone out to someone's home?
yeah, and they can also do water testing as well.
So we've been able to get the message out to the realtors, because I always felt that was an effective ordinance that we passed. I'm
Yeah.
not sure how many you do a year because of it, but
Actually, I might have those numbers. I'll find that and get it to you. But I think that from this ordinance, perfect. I was missing a page. To date, we've had 394 services through a sale of a home that have actually come into the engineering department and was certified so that they could move on with their sale. What we've done is we've worked with the treasurer's office so that the water, the final water bill is not issued until they know that the engineering department has gone through this procedure. So out of those 394, 44 were identified as having lead on the private side, and they've been addressed. And they now represent 44 complete relays in part of our number for 2018. 78 were identified as having lead on the private and public sides and are now complete relays. So that's a big step.
These addresses that you have just relay written next to them, what does that mean?
Just relay?
Yeah,
that it's a complete relay. That means it's on the private and on the public.
Okay, so both sides.
Both sides.
And do we stay up with them as they do the private side? Bobby, are you able to have contractors to go out there and do our due diligence to the public side?
Yeah, so far, we've been able to keep up, but I think moving forward between, our staff and contractors, it's going to obviously grow. We have to do it within 72 hours by the mandate. We have to do, if the homeowner does the private side, we have 72 hours to do the city side, or then have to give filters and testing. But so far, we've been able to do a pretty good job with keeping up with it. It's been a good process. I think a big thing back that we said years ago was that I think if people know, they'll respond, and that's proof here in what we've done with this program.
Thank you.
Councilor O'Malley?
Thank you, Madam President. I just want to congratulate the mayor's office, the engineering department, and the DPW for an absolutely amazing job doing this. I think they deserve a round of applause. I really do. I think that we talked about a lot of numbers, but I want to highlight a few of the numbers because I think they're really important. I might not be known as the numbers guy, but I still have some numbers. You said that we replaced 233 lead service lines, correct?
In 2018.
In 2018 alone. And the DEP consent order only required 150. That's over a 50% increase in the amount of service lines that were replaced. And I think that's one of the reasons why that applause was well-deserved. That didn't just happen out of thin air. That happened from hard work by our staff and by the administration to make sure that happened, and by the City Council for funding the removals of these lead service lines, and the MRA for their part there also. I mean, I know that the residents of Ward 4 are very aware of what was going on. If you live on Autumn, Rosemont, Fairlawn, Wedgemere, Kenmore, Main Street, it's been a tough construction season, but it's been for the right reasons. I mean, traffic has been pretty bad, but we were replacing a critical infrastructure that we consume, that goes into our bodies, that goes into our children's bodies. And just a few more statistics. I just quickly did a count of the numbers, and 76 of the 233 of those lead service lines were done in Ward 4. So that's 1/3 of the entire 233 that were done. If you talked about the 150 that were required by DEP alone, that's over 50%. So I appreciate the hard work that's been done. And I look forward to continuing this process of removing these as quickly as possible. And I look forward to, in future years, exceeding the 150 again. Maybe the 233 is what we should be aiming for. Thank you.
Councilor Winslow?
Yeah, Marie-Louise, thank you for coming out tonight, and thanks for everybody here for being here tonight. I know we had some questions we forwarded on from when this paper went up, and so I just had some clarifications. You got some of the information. So just to clarify, first, you mentioned, I guess, a total of 122 either private or public and private services had been replaced because of the ordinance. Was that primarily in 2018, or is that going back further? So,
because of the ordinance?
Yeah.
There was actually, there was 100, right.
So that was that for 2018? Some of what, I know the council really wanted to get a sense of what the impact of the ordinance was. So out of the 233 in 2018, was a lot of that? I mean, it was the 122 because of the ordinance, is that?
So
Yes, sir.
in 2017, we complete 175, and in 2018, we complete 233. So it is the difference is the ordinance that was in place.
So that bump up is because of the ordinance?
Correct.
Okay, so yeah. You know, some questions, I mean, some of this was to sort of also ask some prospective questions of, you know, we're plugging away. I mean, I know we have 2,600, a little bit more to still replace. And there were some questions that came up about the consent order, whether that, I mean, we hear the 150 per year, but also someone had a question, do we also have to get it done in 10 years? It's a 10-year consent order. So do we have to be done with the 2,600 by 10 years, or we just have to keep going?
No, I believe that's not the case. The consent order is in place for 10 years, but probably before that 10 year is up, we'll be under some other consent order, or it will be reviewed at that time so that we enter a new consent order moving forward.
So, you know, so we're still on that pace, but even at the end of 10 years, which I guess we're a couple years in, you know, I guess at the pace we're about, you know, 220, we'll be almost done, but we're still, if we stick to the 150, we'll still falling short. But do you feel confident that if the real estate market slows and that the ordinance has a little bit less effect, we'll still be able to meet the 150 at least per year?
I think we're pretty confident with the 150. I mean, that was a number we had worked out with the Mass DEP. The whole idea is to do a lot of it in-house, but as you know, there was $750,000 appropriated in the budget to cover private contractors as well. So they're also out there while we're doing a lot in-house. So we're pretty aware of how that pans out.
Right. I know. I actually want to point resident Isaac Slavitt, who's in the house tonight. Isaac's actually, as a volunteer, is gathering information to look at streets that have the most children, to maybe look at those as priorities coming forward. So I'm just wondering, is there thinking about the next 5 years in terms of you know, proactive streets that will be repairing? Are we factoring in strategically what streets we might be focusing for that kind of thing based on sort of risks and how many residents live on those? I'm just wondering if that's something.
As far as lead?
Yeah, you know, how are we thinking the next 5 years might go in terms of, you know, where the city would prioritize replacing pipes?
So one thing that we do look at is the age of pipe and the vicinity of where they are. So like, for instance, Councilor O'Malley mentioned Autumn Street. The street condition was not in good condition. The age of the pipe is a little older. There was multiple homes on one area where we can get a lot of lead line replacements done instead of bouncing around. So those are all things that we look at in making decisions. Obviously, we don't want to rip up a newer or a street in good condition. So that's what we use to base our decisions, is age of pipe, condition of street, and location of how many in a specific area where we don't have to make too many mobilizations. We can get multiple lead service lines done in a day or in a week in the same area.
So, and just kind of a final question. I know, you know, there was basically a $55 million, you know, investment in repaving our streets and doing our lead lines. A staff starting to look at kind of the next phase. I think that we're sort of be wrapping that up in 2019. Are we starting to look at a package of kind of the next set of street improvements and lead pipes and that? How's that going?
So I've been working with Bobby, Gary, and Chuck and Jonathan for the 5-year plan as far as main replacement and all. But you know, we're looking at 2,500 feet of main replacement per year, and of those, I mean, we're looking at a complete replacement of 40 lead lines. So all of those mains that are undersized, they also have lead lines in addition to the undersized main. So we'll hopefully to target replacing the main, and at the same time, you know, get replace the lead lines as well.
So that's, you're starting to work on that
you'll see
five-year
additional
plan.
40 or so per year from
Do
the
you,
capital movement.
did the mayor's office have a sense of when you might be coming to the council for funding or that type of thing?
We're pretty close.
Okay, all right, well, thanks, good. We'll look forward to that, so, great.
Thank you. Councilor Matheson?
Thank you, Chair, and thank you very much, Maria Louise and Mr. Lipp and Mr. Knox. I just had a question about how many outstanding do we have? I'm not sure if I have all the information in front of me for that. I can see the replacements that you have here. I saw 174 and 233. But how many public replacements do we have remaining, and how many private replacements do we have remaining?
Right now, our inventory shows that we have 2,600 lead lines on the public side.
Public side, okay, so
Yep.
those are the city-owned water pipes.
Yep.
Okay, what about private? And I know that maybe we don't have a complete inventory, so that number is subject to
We
change.
work on that every day, the
Right.
inventory, to make it as accurate as possible.
Right.
Right now, there's about 1,400 on the private side.
Private, okay. And I understand that there's a constraining factor there, because you need someone with their private property to say, yes, I do want to replace my pipe, and I understand that it comes with a cost, so we can't just go in and do that work ahead of that consent. But on the public side, what's the constraining factor? I know you don't want to disrupt a brand newly paved street. I can't imagine that's the case in too many of these, but why aren't we doing more? How fast can we go? I'd like to see this happening at a point or a pace where there's a light at the end of the tunnel. At this point, I heard Councilor Winslow say, yeah, in 10 years we might be done, but it looks like we won't be done.
I think the biggest challenge, Counselor, is resources. Also, there's not that big of a window in which to accomplish it because of weather.
Construction
obviously.
season. So
Yeah.
what is the construction season approximately for this type of work? It's different for different types of work. I know concrete cures at certain temperatures. And
Technically, I would say April to November, but if you have a mild winter, you might be able to sneak a few extra weeks, but technically April to November. I mean, as far as numbers for what we're doing right now, I think we're going at a pretty decent clip for what we have for resources between privates and city staff, along with what we're doing.
And Bob, we're not doing the private work, are we?
We don't do the private work.
Okay,
no.
we only do the public work. So
Right.
Okay.
So we have different lists. If a homeowner does the private side, we then go on the clock to do the city side within 3 days. So that's a big thing on how we move around and get them done as well. But in a perfect world, you'd like to get them all done as quick as you possibly can. I think we're going at a pretty fair clip, exceeding the expectations of what the DEP is requiring.
Okay, and how do you determine which ones are done by public resources and which are outsourced?
So that's a good question. There's the water project. They just did a lot of work on Gilbert Street and different streets, but we do technically, a lot of them we get from, if a contractor comes in and you're doing your house, we get them turned over to us, and a lot of those we're doing. Some of them that we do are if we go in to repair a leak. The old way of repairing a leak in the city of Malden for many years was, you go in, you get a leak. If it's a lead line, you replace it. A section, you cut it out and replace it. We no longer do that. So if we go in and we see it's a full lead, we'll go from the main to the curb stop, putting new copper in. So there's many different ways of us getting to the goal and the number that we want to get to. Some are that way, some are from sales of property. There's many different ways for us to get to where we're going to go.
Okay. So if we have 2,615 remaining, and last year was our most productive year, 213 replacements, we're looking at about 12 or 13 years before we can replace all the public side pipes. Is there a way that we can bite off more than this and have it done within the next 5 years, 6 years versus 12 years?
Well, as far as with city staff, I think that a good goal for us...
You have to outsource more.
It would have to be outsourced. So it comes down to outsourcing and funds available to do that.
Could we get some information on what your resources allow you to accomplish in a year and the cost of what it would cost to outsource additional relays a year so that we can see what our maximum productivity could be? Because this is an important issue. I think everybody agrees this is an important issue. And I think to have an indefinite timeline that goes out 12 or 13 years, I mean, for me, advocating for my residents, I don't find that adequate. I'd like to see us pick up the pace.
And again, I'll say it is a goal of ours. They're requiring us to do 150 a year, the DEP.
Right.
And all of us are on the same page. It is a goal of ours to well exceed that and do as many as we possibly can to exceed that. So, but yes, we can find out that information for you.
Right, okay, because if we were doing 300 a year, we're already dropping below 10 years. And if we could do 500 a year, well, now we're looking at more like 5.5 years. So I think that's a conversation we need to have. Bob, I appreciate it again. I just want the members of the public, while I still have time, to know that there is an interest-free loan available from the MRA. And if you are not sure if you qualify on the income thresholds, family of 2, household income up to $62,500, family of 4, $78,000, family of 6, $90,000. I do feel like a lot of Malden households might qualify for this 3-year interest-free loan to help you do this work and make your house a little safer and help the city move to its ultimate objective. So thank you very much. Appreciate the information.
Councilor Spatafora.
Thank you, Madam President. I also want to congratulate the entire city, the Water Department, DPW, and the Mayor's Office with Maria Louise here on great work. I think all the councilors are saying the same thing, and obviously we'd love to work faster, but resources and time is always a factor. A couple of things, though, I do want to point out. I want to give credit. What credit due is the council did pass the ordinance to enforce, if based on certain parameters, when the private sector or the private side of the house would have to change their lead line. And I know that was not always a popular thing among realtors and some of the older folks in the community who were selling the house and then realized they had to change the lead line. But I know conversations with you and Mr. Knox, we just passed the ordinance. There was no details when we passed that ordinance. And I know those conversations where you said, Craig, so how do we do this? And I said, well, we just passed the ordinance. We didn't have any details. So I know there was a lot of work, which you mentioned, on fine-tuning the process post the ordinance. So that's part of, I think, the goal of helping us move from over 180 to maybe until next year, because the city never had an ordinance, never had a process, right? And I think you mentioned too tracking, and I've said this before. I went through the process of trying to replace my lead line, only find out it was already replaced because, unfortunately, our records, the previous homeowner didn't tell the city they replaced it. So shame on us, meaning the homeowner. And I also think another thing that's important to note too is if you do test your water and you do have even a copper line, you could get a false positive because of your faucet, because that happened to me. I was testing the water for the city for a while, and we got a false positive, and that's what kind of dug my heels in to change the pipe, and I only realized it was from a fixture. But more importantly, I just want to remind the public. So the federal government does not recognize a street being complete until we change the city side and as well as the private side, right? So if let's just say Autumn, everybody's talking about Autumn.
It would be Mass DEP.
Mass DEP.
They're requiring what they call a full relay, which is both sides. Prior to that, in our previous consent order,
it was only one side.
One side would count.
Yep.
And we could also bank.
And use them somewhere else.
And use it. For instance, this year, we could bank some of the 233 after the...
And put them to next year's goal. Yeah, and I think that's important for the public to really make that resonate, because we need their help as well, because the city can go out and do all these if we had unlimited resources and get them all done. But by the mandate, we still required to have a quote-unquote complete street, meaning, again, using the example of Council O'Malley's ward, Autumn Street, if there was 6 city lead lines and replace them tomorrow, but there's still 6 that are private, it doesn't count. We need those 6 private to be considered complete. And it's never easy. I think Council Mathis said it's not popular. It's not easy to say to a private citizen, you have to replace this. I wish we had the ability on the state level to do something like this. It is certainly a health risk to not only the elderly but also the young. But I think it's good to come in and talk about the progress we made on the city side. But we need the private help here too. And again, Council mentioned the loans. I just wish we could get together with the housing. To have them force any people on Section 8 or any type of federal ticket, force them to kind of put that in the checklist, as well as I was talking to Council Crow. There was an article in the Globe the other day about Governor Baker is ramping up enforcement on daycares. but unfortunately the staffing is not there. And I know we have a lot of daycares, but they're not staffed, they're not licensed by the city. I think daycare should have to change their copper lines or their lines to copper as part of doing business. But unfortunately, our hands are tied because we don't have that ability to do so. But hopefully somebody from the state delegation is listening, and things like this can help us achieve our goal in getting all these pipes changed.
From what I can see, Council, I think we're the only city that has an ordinance that requires it at the time of sale and those other triggering events.
I agree. I think that's very, because we did copy the, was it Title, the septic system. That's was something we came up, Title IX, that's right, Title IX. So it's unfortunate we had to do this, but I think it is working. So great progress, but I am pleading with the public to help us complete our goal. Thank you. Thank you, Madam President.
Thank you. Councilor Di Maria.
Thank you, Madam President, and again, thank you to the administration, Maria Luis, and our department heads for working so diligent and figuring things out and going through a plan. I know that you did say 1,400 lead lines on the private side. Well, that can be $13.99 because we had ours done this year. So I think what would be really helpful is maybe somewhere we could list the contractors that do it, because I think that's the first hurdle. Who do I call? Who does this work? And through the process, my contractor removed my lead line from the street to the house in about 2.5 hours. It was amazing. It was almost like surgery. It was just great to watch, and then it was done. So I don't know if that's something maybe we would consider, the few contractors that do it. There's not a lot. And Bobby, did you want to?
Well, we do have a list of contracts that we suggest. You can obviously we do have a list.
Beautiful. It's on the website?
We can check. I don't think it's
Or call.
but we do have a list of contracts.
Okay, that's great, because that's the first step for a homeowner that if they don't know, what to do. But once it was done, it was like, this is great. A little pricey, but what are you going to do? So safety first. Thank you, Madam President.
Thank you. Councilor Kamel.
Thank you guys so much for coming and talking about this. It's a huge undertaking. So, in one of the in the packet of information, there's a notice that went out. It references cityofmalden.org/lead. That's somewhere our residents can go and find out a lot of good information. One thing in specific I wanted to ask about is if you scroll down to the related links, there's find out if you have lead service lines, which does mention calling the engineering department. It also has a link to the lead service map. You mentioned earlier accuracy, and so I wanted to ask or just have residents have an understanding. Is there how much accuracy is there to that map? Basically, the properties all look like they're either clear, pink, or red. Not to talk about that from memory, but how accurate are those classifications there? Thanks.
That's a tough one to answer. Again, we have many unknowns in the city.
Yeah.
Based on the work that we've done this year, 2018, we're looking at anywhere between 5 and 10%. That's not accurate.
5 to 10%. That's not accurate.
Correct.
Okay, that's not terrible. But that could tell you if you go there and you see that you're red, you definitely have lead. Mm-hmm. But just because it's clear, you still may want to contact the engineering department or do a visual inspection.
Correct.
And again, I'll defer to you, but if folks are looking at their own pipe, what I read there is, it's usually a dull color. If you scratch it with a key, it turns silver. Mm-hmm. Could you talk a little bit more about just if folks are curious and they go down their own basement and they want to do an initial visual inspection?
Again, then you can do that, and you can also give us a call.
Just call you guys. Yeah. Okay, great. Thank you.
Yeah, we always urge everyone to call the engineering department.
Instead of doing it themselves.
And the good thing moving forward is now we can record real time as they're on the site.
Great.
They can put the accurate information in.
Excellent.
So
thank you.
Instead of going back.
Councilor Matheson.
Thank you again. And on the coattails of what Councilor Camella just said, I received a notice from the MWRA, and they had said, if you want to do your home test, find the water service where it comes in from the street in your basement. If you give it a scratch and it looks like a penny, then it's a copper pipe and you're safe. If it looks dull like a nickel, then you may have lead. It's not a foolproof test. It's just something you can initially do at no cost for yourself at home. I did it myself at my home. I determined I had lead and I replaced it. So just something to keep in mind. Thank you.
Councilor O'Malley.
Thank you. A personal anecdote, because I also had my lead service line replaced recently. The scratch test that we're referring to, like you said, is not 100%, because one of the techniques that might have been done in the past is you scratch it on the inside, and maybe it's copper, but there could have been a leak in the past where they were just replacing it from inside to just outside the foundation, and there's a chance that the rest of the line on your private side is actually lead all the way to the street. I did this scratch test and I found copper inside my basement, but because I am who I am, I decided to go out and dig my own test pit outside of my yard. I did, and contrary to Councilor DiMaria's 2.5-hour replacement, it took me 3 weeks to dig that hole. I went 6 feet down. They said it was going to be around 5. I was like, okay, I'm going too deep. What's going on here? I dug 2 feet to the left, and I found it finally. So it turned out to be copper. Yeah, but it's something you can I wouldn't recommend digging your own test pit, but I will say that I am very proud that we passed this ordinance. I know one of the comments that we received in the past is, it's an infringement on private property rights to require homeowners to replace their service line on the private side. But I do think that the public health benefit outweighed that infringement. I think the health of our children and the fact that there is a natural sunset provision. When there's no more lead pipes, you won't have to replace them anymore. So I just want to say thank you again, and hopefully good night soon. Sorry, guys.
Thank you for coming.
Thank
On
you.
behalf of the chair, thank you for coming to discuss.
Thank you.
Okay, next order of business. Do we know? Public comment? She's going to check the list to make sure nobody's here to speak. Okay. No public comment. Oh, yes. We do have members of the public here recording tonight's meeting. I apologize, I forgot to mention that. Next order of business.
Approval of the minutes, the meeting minutes of January 8th, 2019, and the meeting minutes of January 15th, 2019.
On Councilor Murphy's motion to approve the minutes, all those in favor? Councilor O'Malley.
So I know the last 2 weeks have been, we'll say, eventful, and I just want to kind of bring to your attention that I think what we're doing right now, this approval of the minutes, is I think the breakdown in the process that we've been discussing in executive session. Not the topic of what we've been discussing in executive session, but for instance, we were talking about the meeting minutes from January 8th, 2019. On that date, we had an executive session, and we're also talking about the meeting minutes from January 15th, where we also had an executive session. The minutes that were provided to us by the city clerk's office do not include the meeting minutes from executive session. So this step here is not approving the meeting minutes from executive session. So all I would say is I'm going to be voting against the meeting minutes tonight, not because I don't think they're accurate, but because I don't think they're complete, considering what we've been told by the city clerk is that during this process is when we are approving executive session meeting minutes. I don't think that's the case, and I just wanted to explain. I think that this is the part where the breakdown's happening. So thank you.
Okay, on Councilor Murphy's motion to approve the minutes, all those in favor? All those opposed? The minutes are approved. Next order of business.
Hearings, petitions, memorials. We have two petitions. Petition AT&T to construct and maintain telecommunication wires, wireless attachments, and appurtenances to be attached to an existing National Grid utility pole located at Evelyn Street and to install conduit. The second petition, 2119, AT&T to construct and maintain telecommunications wires, attachments, and appurtenances to be attached to an existing National Grid utility pole located on Linden Ave and to install conduit.
I declare the public hearing open. Anyone wishing to speak in favor of these petitions, please come forward and state your name and address for the record.
Good evening. My name is Edward Parry. It's P-A-R-E. I'm an attorney at Brown Rudnick, here representing AT&T. My address is 1 Financial Center, Boston, Massachusetts. Good evening, Council President and councilors. If the council probably recalls, and I know some of the committee members have met with my partner, Michael Dolan. The City Council recently approved 4 of these. These are the next wave of wireless to support 5G and to enhance 4G systems. So we have 2 new proposals this evening. One is at a pole near 14 Evelyn Place. This is located behind the Gateway Apartments. I don't know if you opened both hearings, or are we just dealing with the Evelyn right now? Individually?
Sure.
So these will be similar to the other installations that we did and worked through the committee. There's a small antenna attached to an existing pole. We're not replacing the pole. It's not a double pole, and I run into that throughout the Commonwealth. We comply with the regulations that were put in place by the City Council. I'd be happy to go through the technical elements in detail, but I know we'll get to the committee and deal with that. I'd be happy to answer any questions at this point, or again, I can provide further detail.
Perfect. Councilor Matheson.
Thank you. Mr. Parry, is it?
It is. Thank you.
Thank you for coming. So I wasn't aware if this was a 5G application or not, but it is. We did just perfect an ordinance last year. You're familiar with all the requirements of that ordinance?
Yes, I am.
And the fee structure?
And yes, I am.
Okay, and your application is compliant with that?
It is.
Okay. Of the other ordinances that you've seen in other communities, would you say that this is similar with the nature of the ordinances that you've seen?
I would say that this is a bit more detailed and
we thought so.
Probably vastly more expensive, but
yeah.
I'll leave it at that.
Right. All right, well, thank you for coming in. That's my question. I do believe, Chair, that we send these to public property for review.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you. Councilor Condon.
What's the size of the box you're putting in on the pole?
The box itself is about 30 inches wide, and let me just make sure I have it correct here, because I know you do have a maximum, and it does fit within the maximum. I think it's 7 cubic feet. It's 32 long, 18 inches wide, and 15 inches deep.
And how far off the ground is it?
The cabinet itself will be 16 feet in accordance with your regulations, and those are contained on our plans.
I think originally when you came in with that, it was only 8 or 10 feet. Did you raise it up?
Typically, the meter box is at 8 feet. The electronic component box is about 11 and a half feet, so they've been raised up to comply. We raised up the first group before to comply with the regulation, and these we came in. These are 2 new sites, so they're at 16 feet already.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions? Okay, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Anyone else wishing to speak in favor? Hearing none and seeing none, I declare that portion of this hearing closed. We're going to open the next public hearing.
Anyone wishing to speak in opposition?
Oh, excuse me. Anyone wishing to speak in opposition of these petitions, please come forward and state your name and address for the record. Hearing none and seeing none, I declare that portion of the hearing closed. we are going to open the public hearing for Linden Ave. Yes.
I'll make a motion to refer that.
Oh, refer, excuse me. Okay. Thank you. On Councilor Matheson's motion to refer to public property, all those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? The petitions have been referred. Next order of business. The second one. You wanted to reread it, even though she already read it? Yes. Would you like her to reread that paper? Okay.
The second petition, AT&T to construct and maintain the telecommunication wires, wireless attachments, and appurtenances to be attached to the existing National Grid utility pole located on Linden Ave and to install conduit.
I declare the public hearing open. Anyone wishing to speak in favor of the petitions, please come forward and state your name and address for the record.
Good evening. My name is Edward Parry. I'm an attorney at Brown Rudnick, One Financial Center, Boston, Massachusetts. I'm here representing AT&T. All of my comments from the previous application should be incorporated by reference into this one. It's an identical situation, same equipment, existing pole, etc. Again, not wasting anyone's time. I'd be happy to answer any questions.
No questions. Okay. Anyone else wishing to speak in favor of this petition? Hearing none and seeing none, I declare that portion of the hearing closed. Anyone wishing to speak in opposition of this petition? Hearing none and seeing none, I declare that portion of the hearing closed. On Councilor O'Malley's motion to refer this petition to public property, all those in favor? Sorry. All those opposed? The petition has been referred. Councilor Kamel, would you like to speak still or no? Okay, sorry.
Thank you.
Thank you. Next order of business.
We have a Class 2 license, Malden Middlesex Motor Sales, Inc., 129 Charles Street in Malden, 25 cars renewal. And we have a Class 3 Malden Middlesex Motor Sales, Inc., 129 Charles Street, Malden, Mass. renewal.
On Councilor Murphy's motion to refer the petitions to the license, all those in favor? All those opposed? The license are referred to committee. Next order of business.
Paper 2419, oh wait, I'm sorry. Order that the Public Property Committee review and inventory public property.
Councilor O'Malley for the committee.
Thank you, Madam President. So this paper is just instructing the Public Properties Committee to do an inventory of all public property in the city. Councilor Kamel had a great idea of protecting some property up in the Maplewood Highlands that the whole council signed on to, and I just would like to better understand the inventory. I don't know everything that's in my ward. I'm sure that it's difficult to understand what's going on in all the other wards. So at this point, just working with Steve Fama to get an inventory of addresses and what's there, and then from there, at least we're going to be able to have a more detailed conversation. So I'd be looking to pass it tonight. I'd make a motion to approve, but I don't want to stifle any conversation.
On Councilor O'Malley's motion to approve, seconded by Councilor Anderson. All those in favor? Aye. All those opposed?
No, it just
made a motion to approve.
It's instructing the Public Properties Committee to review and inventory public property.
Everyone okay? Okay. Paper's been approved. Next order of business.
Paper 2519, order that the City of Malden accept Sections 3A and 3D, A and B of MGL Chapter 64G, Section 6 of Chapter 337 of the Acts of 2018. That the City of Malden accept Sections 3A and 3D and B of MGL Chapter 64G, Section 6 of Chapter 337 of the Acts of 2018, imposing a 6% excise tax on short-term rentals and other lodgings as defined by the act in a community impact fee of 3% on professionally run short-term rentals, and a 3% community impact fee of 3% on short-term rentals, and a 2 rentals of 2 and 3 family owner-occupied homes. 50% of those funds generated shall be dedicated to Malden's Community Preservation Act, Affordable Housing Act, and the remaining 50% shall be dedicated to infrastructure improvements necessary to increase lead pipe service removals above 150 per year and traffic signal maintenance and upgrades.
Councilor Winslow for the paper.
Yeah, the legislature passed and Governor Baker just signed into law a bill that provides state taxing and regulation with the option of more local regulation and taxing of short-term rentals. I know that many councilors have concerns about short-term rentals, and our Public Properties Committee deals with these all the time. I submitted this paper so that the city can review this new law and any local options to carefully review those to see how this could work and whether the city should do this. I did speak to the building inspector, who's very much aware of this. So my recommendation would be to refer this to Rules and Ordinance for a meeting with the building inspector, and then maybe a referral to the Public Properties Unit to see what their recommendations would be. But it's really just to see what the city should do. You know, this is a problem that's recurring, and there's actually Airbnb was not very happy with this legislation that's passed. This could give the city more tools to help control short-term rentals. If a short-term rental doesn't register with the state, the city can collect taxes. There's also application of state fraud laws that would allow some triple collection of things. So we might actually end up with more enforcement tools against this, whether or not we would find those acceptable. I know the building inspectors mentioned that, and there's a little bit of conflict here, that the state passed this law allowing this, but the state building codes don't allow it. So there's conflicts we need to look at, but I think this is new legislation, and just as Councilor Matheson and the Rules and Ordinance Committee worked on the legislation related to small cell antennas. There were a lot of issues there that we worked through. I think that's the kind of thing of looking at this new legislation to see where the city should come out on it, and so that we're not taken surprised by it. But that's my recommendation, to be referred to Rules and Ordinance for further consideration. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilor Murphy.
Yes, and I'm glad you had a conversation with the building commissioner, because I had a similar one. And I guess, you know, the biggest issue that we have right now with this being passed is how do you tax something that's not allowed? And it's not allowed under the state building code. This use is not allowed. It's also not allowed in our zoning. So there certainly is a larger discussion that needs to take place before we would ever consider implementing a tax. You know, if that's the end result, that's great. It's more funds coming in, but we need to understand the impact to the neighborhoods. As I always say to people, my number one job is to protect the neighborhoods, and I know that I have a few situations where people are very upset because single-family homes have been turned into Airbnb, and it's causing issues on the street. And on the flip side, I have people who'd love to get a little bit more income by renting out a room and having, you know, folks come in and be able to, you know, be hospitable and invite people into their home. So I think it's an extremely large discussion that needs to take place, and I'm glad to see it go to Rules and Ordinance. But because the order kind of had me thrown that it was an order. But I you know, definitely would look forward to a discussion on this. But I know that there's also, according to the building commissioner, there is some information that has just come out from the fire department, and not just our fire department, but the national group. So I believe he said he was going to send that to all of us. So I think we'll have some good information to be able to have a discussion. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilor Matheson.
Thank you, Chair, and much like Councilor Murphy, I look forward to the discussion on Ordinance Committee with respect to this paper. You might recall, in 2017, I had 2 papers submitted to ordinance on this subject, but knowing that the state had to tackle this issue because it's something that's impacting many communities and states and foreign countries, these short-term rentals. So I can see that the paper has funds that would be revenues earmarked for certain causes. And of course, there's an inconsistency with the state building code that needs to be reconciled. But I look forward to looking more into this and addressing some of the several issues that surround this issue, which is sometimes when you have a home business operating in your quiet community, it can be a concern. So I look forward to looking into this. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilor Spatafora.
Thank you, Madam President. I think the other council spoke very eloquently in terms of kind of the conflict we have internally. I do support send this to ordinance. It's something that we're going to have to deal with similar to Uber. It's just a changing world. I would just say this. I'm not asking to amend it on the floor. We can definitely certainly talk about it in committee, but a couple things that if we are going to craft all our ordinances and go with this, unless we outlaw it, but I definitely like the fact it's 2 and 3 family owner occupied. I know it sounds silly, but I think if it's owner occupied, you might have the ability to somewhat control it. I would definitely want to say that they have to have off-street parking. That is absolutely going to be in there. I think Portland, Maine has actually passed something similar to that. I also think while those funding buckets are very good, it would tax our inspectional services department even more so. So we probably should take some of that money and look to hiring more inspectors. I don't think we can ever have enough building inspectors and compliance inspectors and board of health inspectors. Because if we pass this and we're naive enough to think that our small staff can handle this, we're kidding ourselves. So if we are going to go down the path and make this legal, I think this is a good start. But some of the things that I definitely think we have to look at is adding staff requirements. So all that revenue is not going to be net, but staffing is important, I think, in off-street parking. To Council Murphy's point, you put this in some neighborhoods that might have one tenant right now, and that changes between Uber drop-offs or somebody renting a car and parking in an area where they might not have a sticker. If we ever come out with residential parking sticker, this could become a problem. But I think if you require them to have off-street parking, you might be able to put this in some areas. But I look forward to discussion. Thank you, Madam President.
Thank you. Councilor O'Malley.
I just wanted to say thank you to Councilor Winslow for doing your homework and bringing this forward. You're often at the cutting edge of this stuff. I know it's just got passed by the legislature. So even if we don't allow it and the state building code doesn't allow it, having it on the books for when it is allowed statewide will help us make sure that we are getting what we deserve. The same way we have with the meals tax and hotel tax, et cetera. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilor Winslow's motion to refer the matter to Rules and Ordinance. All those in favor? All those opposed? The matter is referred. Next order of business.
Paper 2619, order that the City of Malden designate the following locations as polling places for 2019 elections. Ward 1, Precinct 1, Ferryway School, 150 Cross Street. Ward 1, Precinct 2, Ferryway School, 150 Cross Street. Ward 2, Precinct 1, Community Room, 89 Pearl Street. Ward 2, Precinct 2, Irish American, 177 West Street. Ward 3, Precinct 1, BB School, K4 Gymnasium, 401 Pleasant Street. Ward 3, Precinct 2, BB School Music Room, 401 Pleasant Street. Ward 4, Precinct 1, Early Learning Center, Home School, 257 Mountain Ave, Gymnasium. Ward 4, Precinct 2, Senior Center Auditorium, 7 Washington Street. Ward 5, Precinct 1, Salem Wood School, 529 Salem Street. Ward 5, Precinct 2, Forestdale School, 74 Sylvan Street. Ward 6, Precinct 1, MVR Mystic Valley Regional Charter School, 4 Laurel Street, Multi-Purpose Room. Ward 6, Precinct 2, Community Room, 630 Salem Street. Ward 7, Precinct 1, Ferryway School, 150 Cross Street. Ward 7, Precinct 2, Suffolk Manor Community Room, 312 Bryant Street. Ward 8, Precinct 1, Linden School, 29 Westcott. And Ward 8, Precinct 2, Linden School, 29 Westcott Street.
Councilor O'Malley.
Thank you, Madam President. I just wanted to ask, have there been any changes? Because I know last year there was a few snafus with the polling places in Ward 6 and Ward 4 with the changes not being announced. Have there been any changes that we need to know about that we should make sure that I mean, y'all know in your wards, I know in my ward. Has anyone seen any changes? No? Okay, thank you.
Councilor Winslow?
Yeah, I just, I vote in precinct 6-1, and, that's the charter school multipurpose room. And the challenge there is that you have to have the handicapped access. So it was very confusing this last time because people couldn't come into the front door because that's not accessible. So I just, if we could pass a note on to the clerk's office that to make sure that that's well posted at that location, that that would just, I'm fine with the location, but it was confusing to voters this past election because you couldn't get in through the front door, and it's not easy to find the accessible route. So we should just mark that better. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilor O'Malley?
So I have one more question. When we do these in private or non-city-owned buildings, does the city pay those entities to have the election there, or is this all done pro bono? Like the Irish American, right? It's like those private organizations. Is it just like something they do out of the goodness of their heart? Okay, I just have not thought to ask the question. So.
Do you know?
I will find that out for you, Ryan. I'm not sure.
Thank you. On Councilor's motion to adopt, all those in favor? All those opposed? The order has been adopted. Next order of business.
Paper 2719, order that the mayor and the city council hereby fix the following dates and hours for the 2019 city preliminary and election for the election of mayor, councilors at large, ward councilors, and city committee members. June 18th, nomination papers available from the city clerk's office. July 25th, 5 p.m., last day and hour to obtain nomination papers from the city clerk's office. July 30th, 5 p.m., last day and hour to submit nomination papers to the Register of Voters office for certification. August 13th, 5 p.m., last day and hour to file certification nomination papers with the city clerk's office. August 15th, 5 p.m., last day and hour for filing withdrawals from nomination for the preliminary or objections to nomination. August 28th, 8 p.m., close of registration for the preliminary. September 9th, 5 p.m., first campaign finance statement due. September 17th, preliminary. September 23rd, 5 p.m., last day and hour to withdraw from nomination at the preliminary or petition for a recount of votes, or if a preliminary is not held, to withdraw from nominations for the final election. October 16th, 8 p.m., close of registration for election. October 28th, 5 p.m., second campaign finance statement due. November 5th, election. November 15th, 5 p.m., last day and hour to petition for recount or votes at election. January 21st, 2020, final campaign finance statement due.
On Councilor Condon's motion to adopt, all those in favor? Oh, sorry.
The light on?
Councilor Anderson.
Yes, would you just look at the date of July 30th and August 13th? I'm not sure I understand the difference of those things. Are those both, are we repeating ourselves? 5 p.m. on July 30th to submit nomination papers for certification. On August 13th, at 5 p.m., last day and hour to file certification nomination papers with the city clerk. What's the difference? Submit and filing? Am I missing something there?
Councilor Matheson.
Thank you. Yeah, it's a good question. I've asked the same question in the past. That's how I know the answer to this. Because our city clerk's office also doubles as the registrar of voter, turning it in on July 30th, they then certify and perfect your nomination without you doing a second delivery. So when you turn in on July 30th, the city clerk receives it, it stamps it as the registrar of voters, and certifies it immediately. So you don't have to do the August 13th delivery, because it's the same department. Your one delivery did both for you. Does that make sense?
No.
One is to certify the signatures, and the other one is to accept that certification. They have July 30th to August 13th to do the certification.
Yeah, so I don't know if you
I didn't hear
heard the
that.
other counselor. You want to go ahead?
Councilor Kamel.
Go ahead.
So you submit it on July 30th. They spend between July 30th and August 13th making sure that certifying those
Okay.
signatures. And then technically, once that's done, that certified set of signatures then it gets approved by the other person at the next desk. So.
Okay, I've raised
Yeah.
the issue. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Councilor Winslow.
I just wondering about this because a lot of other cities actually have people pull nomination papers sooner and have that process of getting on the ballot a little sooner. And I know, it came up as an issue a couple years ago where, there was a challenge to some papers, and it was very hard to get people to come back in August to get certified. So is there any urgency for doing this right now? Could we take a pause and table this for a couple weeks, have the clerk come in and explain? We've been kind of doing it just because doing it, and I think there's some issues about starting the nomination process so late in the summer where people are off on vacation, and we're trying to increase voter participation, and we're, I just think it's worth some discussion that why do we start it so late and have it over the summer when a lot of people are gone? There's nothing without moving it up. So can we table it for a couple weeks and ask those questions? I just thought it would be worth asking the question while we're doing it. So I don't know what people's thoughts are. You guys have done it a lot more than I have, so I just had that question. Thank you.
Any questions? On Councilor Winslow's motion to table, seconded by Councilor O'Malley. All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? Opposed. Okay, the clerk will call the roll.
Councilor Anderson. Councilor Kamel. No. Councilor Condon. No. Councilor Crowe. Yes. Councilor DiMaria. Yes. Councilor Matheson. No. Councilor Murphy. Yes. Councilor O'Malley. Yes. Councilor Spatafora. Yes. Councilor Winslow.
Yes.
President Council Seeker.
No.
6 to 5. Yes.
6 to 5. Tabled. Motion's been tabled.
So then we just ask the registrar to come and just talk about the schedule, and then we can vote on it.
It was 7 to 4. She has 6 to 5. Okay, next order of business.
Paper 2819, order that the sum of $80,000 be and the same is hereby transferred to DPW Equipment Parts 0010-421-5481 from the following accounts: $44,500 from Revenue Reserve 0010-997-5725, $35,500 from DPW Labor 0010-421-5120.
Councilor Kamel for the paper.
Great. So this has come forward because at the DPW there are 2 vehicles right now in the shop. There's a street sweeper and a pickup in the shop. They've already exhausted their $110 budgeted for repairs so far this year, and they need $35,000 for the street sweeper, $10,000 for the pickup, and then the remainder would be buffer for the rest of the fiscal year. So we want to refer this to finance, have them come in. Mr. Knox is going to talk about why he needs this and we'll have an opportunity to ask, why have they gone through the budget already? Is it extenuating circumstances? Did we under budget it? And so I would ask for this to be referred to finance.
On Councilor Kamel's motion to refer this matter to finance, all those in favor? All those opposed? The matter is referred. Next order of business.
Communications, paper 2919, communication from the Planning Board regarding CCP number 47018. Be it hereby ordained by the Malden City Council that Chapter 12 of the revised ordinances of 1991 as amended be in the same are hereby further amended by adding a new section 700.15 as follows. Section 700.15 Development Impact Mitigation. Paper 30-19, communication from the Planning Board, CCP number 50918. Be it hereby ordained that Chapter 12 of the revised ordinances of 1991 as amended be further amended relative to allowing multifamily dwellings only up to 7 stories. Paper 3119, communications from the Planning Board, CCP number 52118. Be it hereby ordained that Section 700.1.3.1 of Chapter 12 revised ordinances of 1991 as amended be further amended to add the following language, which I don't have. Paper 3219, communication from the Planning Board, CCP 52518. Be it hereby ordained that Chapter 12 of the revised ordinances of 1991 as amended be further amended relative to the table of intensity regulations for hotel. Paper 3319, communication from the Planning Board, CCP 554-18. Be it hereby ordained that Chapter 12 of the revised ordinances of 1991 as amended be further amended by adding new sections 800.6.2.24b, 300.3.2.13, 400.1.2.10, 500.1.2.9, and 500.2.23 relative to co-housing.
Councilor Spatafora's motion to refer the matter to Rules and Ordinance. All those in favor? All those opposed? The matter is referred to Ordinance. Next order of business.
Claims, paper 3419, claim Brandon Arnott, 18 Briarwood Drive in Danvers, Mass. 01923, and claim paper 3519, claim Stephen Norton, 10 Foster Street, apartment 503, Wakefield, Mass. 01880.
Councilor Kamel's motion to refer to Finance. All those in favor? All those opposed? The matter is referred to Finance. Next order of business.
Committee report. Paper 3619. Committee report, personnel appointments, paper 3-19, council appointment of Candace Julian, 5 Ridgewood Road, Malden, Mass. As the representative of the Chamber on the Human Rights and Fair Housing Commission.
Councilor Crowe for the
Can we to receive the committee report?
motion to receive the committee report. All those in favor? All those opposed? Oh, go ahead.
Can we just read these both because it makes more sense that
Sure.
we read the committee report in its totality?
Committee report 3719. Committee report, personnel appointments, paper 4-19, council appointment of Baya Yashi, 46 Park Street, apartment 10, Malden, Mass. As the representative from the Malden Based Disability Advocacy Organization of the Human Rights and Fair Housing Commission.
Right.
We're going to move to receive that committee report as well?
Yep.
Okay.
It's all the same meeting.
Okay.
Makes more sense. So last week, the appointments and personnel met with these 2 ladies, Candace Julian and Baya Yachi. Both are being referred to be put on the Human Rights and Fair Housing Commission. And this came about, we had some openings when we removed the disabilities part and had our own committee. So there was some other openings available on the Fair Housing and Human Rights Commission. So statutorily, there is someone that represents the Chamber of Commerce on that committee, and someone that represents a Malden-based disabilities advocacy organization. And Candace Julian for the Chamber of Commerce, they had put out an application to see if who from their chamber wanted to serve on this, and Candace stepped forward, and she has quite the background. She's a doctorate of education, and has done a lot of work around restorative practices, and so she will be representing the Chamber of Commerce, and Baya Yachi will be representing CPAC, which is the Special Education Parent Advisory Council, and she is a teacher by trade from I forget which country now. Sorry, don't have my notes. Albania. Thank you, Counselor. And so she will be representing that group. So I make a motion to approve both of these appointments.
On Councilor Crow's motion to approve these, to confirm these appointments.
Confirm.
All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? These appointments have been confirmed. Next order of business.
Committee report, paper 3819, licenses, various Class 2 renewals. We'll lump them together, I'll read them. 503-18, Smart Buy USA, 497 Broadway, 27 cars renewal. 533-18, Wentworth Auto Sales, 730 Eastern Ave, Malden, 15 cars renewal. Paper 534-18, Skips Auto Service, 74 Highland Ave, Malden, 12 cars renewal. Paper 536-18, Andy Service Center, Inc., 356 Lebanon Street, Malden, 3 cars renewal. 537-18, Culleton Brothers, Inc., 61 Clinton Street, Malden, 2 cars renewal. 538-18, Broadway Auto Sales, 628 Broadway, Malden, 0 cars. Paper 539-18, Uni Auto Center, 369 Salem Street, Malden, 20 cars renewal. Paper 540-18, Absolute Auto Rental and Sales, 495 Broadway, Malden, 16 cars renewal. 541-18, Brothers Auto Body, 969 Salem Street, Malden, renewal. Paper 542-18, Auto Bazaar Corp., 17 Charles Street, Malden, 21 cars renewal. Paper 544-18, Sega Auto Sales and Service, Inc., 449 Ferry Street, Malden, 15 cars renewal. Paper 545-18, Macmillan Automotive, 388 Eastern Ave, Malden, 15 cars renewal. Paper 579-18, Linden Auto, 121 Beach Street, Malden, 19 cars renewal. Paper 580-18, Quality Auto Sales, 856 Eastern Ave, Malden, renewal. Paper 6-19, Century Auto Collision and Service, Inc., 448 Eastern Ave, 15 cars. Paper 7-19, Frank's Auto Sales, 189 Highland Ave, Malden, 4 cars renewal. Paper 8-19, Metro Auto Collision and Sales, Inc., 55 Madison Street, Malden, 6 cars renewal. Paper 9-19, Joe Champa Auto Body, Inc., 322 Eastern Ave, Malden, 4 cars renewal. Paper 10-19, C&P Imports, 595 Broadway, Malden, renewal. Paper 11-19, Top Cars Auto Mall, Inc., 259 Main Street, Malden, 35 cars renewal. Paper 12-19, Family Auto Mall, Inc., 1160 through 1176 Eastern Ave, Malden, 18 cars renewal.
Motion to receive the committee report.
Motion to receive the committee report. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed. All those opposed? The committee
Report is received.
report is received. Excuse me.
Thank you, Council President. These are all Class 2 licenses that are basically car dealers. For those of you in the audience who are listening, we had quite a lengthy session last week with our compliance officers to make sure that all of these companies were operating under the conditions of their licenses, all their taxes were paid and up to date. There's no problems with any of these licenses, and I would ask that you would grant them grant all these petitions.
On Councilor Murphy, oops, excuse me.
Yes.
Councilor Di Maria.
Thank you, Madam President. And maybe to the Chair of License.
Yes.
Century Auto, is that a renewal or new?
Century Auto would be a renewal. These were all.
Okay.
I believe these were all renewals.
Renewals. Thank you, Counselor. That's fine. Thank you.
Councilor Matheson.
Yeah, I'll make the motion to allow Councilor Seeker to abstain from the vote.
We didn't, not yet.
This isn't it? Okay.
Nope.
Well,
Thank you, though.
when you're ready, you can.
On Councilor Murphy's motion to grant the petitions, all those in favor? All those opposed? The petitions are granted. Next order of business. Now you can do that. You can read them.
Okay, we have two more of the Class 2 renewals. 53518, Regano's Towing Service, Inc., 1081 Fellsway, Malden, 20-car renewal, and paper 54318, Seekers Automotive, Inc., 1114 Eastern Ave, Malden, 2-car renewal.
On Councilor Matheson's motion to recuse myself from this vote. All those in favor? All those opposed? Do you want to speak on these, or are you good?
Does she need to leave the seat? I think you have to leave the seat. And
Okay.
Have Councilor Anderson.
Somebody?
Is Councilor Spatafora? Sorry.
Where are we? Yeah. Is there a motion for the
Yes.
renewal? Oh, you made it, Council Murphy? I'm sorry.
Well, I would like to, following what I said with the last group, the petitions that were approved, these two establishments have undergone the review of the License Committee. They have been checked by compliance. All the taxes are up to date. And I would make a motion that we approve these petitions.
Thank you, Council Murphy. And Council Murphy's motion to approve both Regano's Towing Service and Andy's Service Center. All those?
No.
Oh, I'm sorry, Seekers Automotive. I'm
Seekers
sorry.
Automotive.
I'll make the motion again. On Council Murphy's motion to approve Regano's Towing Service and Seekers Automotive. All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion carries.
Thank
Oh,
you.
they're approved. Thank you, Mr. President.
Okay.
Yeah, it was.
Next order of business.
Committee report, paper 3919 for licenses, various amusement machine renewals. Paper.
Hold on.
Oh.
Did you not have that?
Might be somewhere
Or is it different?
else. What paper is it?
This one? 4119? Oh. They got it on the wrong spot in mine, sorry. Okay, 3919.
Paper 3919, committee report, license, various amusement machine renewals. Paper 54618, Town Line 10-Pin Corp., 665 Broadway, Malden, 25 machines renewal. Paper 54718, Pearl Street Station Restaurant, 53 Summer Street, Malden, 2 machines renewal. Paper 54818, Italian American War Veterans, Post 16, 40 Oakland Street, Malden, 4 machines renewal. Paper 581-18, Irish American, 177 West Street, Malden, 4 machines renewal. Paper 58218, Amusement Machines, GLS Associates, 50 Holden Street, Malden, 9 machines renewal.
Motion to receive the committee report.
On Councilor Murphy's motion to receive their committee report, all those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? Committee reports are received. Councilor Murphy for the committee.
Yes. Once again, these are just various licenses for amusement devices that are located in restaurants or some of our clubs. Our compliance officers have gone out. They've reviewed the situation. Everyone is up to date on their taxes and their license fees, and I would ask that these petitions be granted.
On Councilor Murphy's motion to receive the, motion to grant the petitions, all those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? The petitions have been granted. Next order of business.
Paper 40-19, committee report, license, various extended hours renewals. 54918 Dunkin' Donuts, 57 Eastern Ave, Malden, Mass. 24/7 renewal. Paper 55018 Dunkin' Donuts, 617 Broadway, Malden, hours 7 days, 4 a.m. to 11 p.m. renewal. Paper 55118 Dunkin' Donuts, 424 Main Street, Malden, hours 7 days, 5 a.m. to 9 p.m. renewal. Paper 55218 Dunkin' Donuts, 245 Pleasant Street, Malden, hours 5 a.m. to 11 p.m. renewal. Paper 55318 Honeydew Donuts, 691 Eastern Ave, Malden, hours 7 days, 5 a.m. to 9 p.m. renewal. Paper 57518 Dunkin' Donuts, 200 Commercial Street, Malden, hours 7 days, 5 a.m. to 10 p.m. renewal. Paper 14-19 Speedway, number 2504, 214 Broadway, Malden, hours 24/7 renewal.
Motion to receive the committee report.
On Councilor Murphy's motion to receive the committee reports, all those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? The committee reports are received. Councilor Murphy for the committee.
Well, you can tell Malden runs on Duncan. So, and Honeydew. Can't leave them out. Once again, there's no issues with any of these petitions. All the taxes, license fees are paid. No issues with the police department or anything. So I would ask that these petitions be granted.
On Councilor Murphy's motion to grant these petitions, all those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? The petitions have been granted. Next order of business.
Committee report paper 41-19, license paper number 46018, outdoor parking, Northeast Snow Services, 531 Rhea, Broadway, Malden, Mass. 5 cars, new.
Motion to receive the committee report.
On Councilor Murphy's motion to receive the committee report, all those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? The committee report is received. Councilor Murphy for the committee.
Thank you, Madam President. This is actually a new license, and with a new license, our compliance officers do go out and check to make sure that there's adequate space to house these vehicles. They came back very positive. There's no issues here once again, so I would ask that the council grant this petition.
Councilor DiMaria.
Thank you, Madam President. For some reason, I remember a year or so ago discussing that we had so many car dealerships in the city. We were going to do a review, and we weren't going to allow any new.
This is actually. May I?
Go ahead.
Thank you.
Thank you. This is actually not a car dealership. This is just an open-air permit. And yes, the license committee is going to be working on the moratorium. We actually talked about that at the last meeting. So
Great.
moving forward with, deciding, how Malden should move forward and how many auto dealers we should allow.
Thank you.
We actually have asked the city clerk, which he's provided, a list of all the current auto dealers, and we're going to start to review that.
Okay.
So, as I said, I would request that this particular one be approved because this is not an auto dealer. It's just someone storing vehicles for snow removal purposes.
Oh, okay.
It's an open-air permit.
Yes.
Okay, thank you, Counselor.
Thank you. On Councilor Murphy's motion to grant the petition, all those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? The petition has been granted. Next order of business.
For the purpose, order that we update our rules in order of the city council be amended. So let me give you a little history. Madam President, this is a motion that I am doing it as not only a favor, but Council President Sika has asked, given the discussion the last couple of weeks in terms of executive session and meetings, that we update our rules, be amended, and essentially what President Sika is passing out is an updated version to our process for approving these executive session minutes, as well as scheduling dates in the future that we automatically will be bound to come together as a group to review the executive session minutes for the purpose of making public. This was a rule that we passed, I believe it was 2 years ago. This council did pass a rule to making executive session minutes public. There are a lot of minutes that are still not public, and a lot of those are still tied to some unfortunate legal cases, but there are some that are not. And what this does will give us the ability, so if I may, the city clerk shall distribute all executive session minutes, meeting minutes to all members who attend the executive session. And within 10 days, and this is legal, there's actually a copy of the frequently asked questions about executive session, so we reached out to the state. Within 10 days of the date of the meeting was held, council members shall provide the clerk any feedback or objections to any material contained within the minutes within 5 days of receipt. If no objection is received within 5 days, these minutes shall be deemed to be approved by the consent of the body. So what this will do is, I know we've gone back and tried to approve minutes with some of those members who were not on the council. To be honest with you, as a council member, I've been on a lot of those meetings. I forgot a lot of those minutes, so this will make it much more timely and relevant, rather. The second portion of this is the city council will schedule an executive session meeting minute within 14 days upon receipt of a request for the release of minutes from the executive session meeting to determine if open meeting laws warrant continued non-disclosure under General Law C-30A. Additionally, the City Council shall schedule an executive session of the Malden City Council during the last weeks of May and November of each year for the purpose of determining if the open meeting laws warrants continued non-disclosure under General Law C-308A of meeting minutes that have not previously been released. The council will vote on the release of any minutes that are no longer warranted exception from the open meeting laws. And this is something that President Sika asked me to work on, as well as sponsor, because she cannot sponsor this as the president and being in the chair. So any questions, you could certainly ask me or the council president. Thank you, Madam President.
Thank you, Councilor Spatafora. Councilor O'Malley.
Thank you, Madam President. I appreciate the work that both the Council President and Chair of Ordinance have done on this. The only thing I would say is I do think this is a great paper. I do think it should appear on a docket, though. I think that we should follow these rules, but I do think that it should appear on a docket, and we should properly send it to the Rules and Ordinance Committee for consideration. That would be my only statement.
Okay, thank you. Councilor Di Maria.
Well, I was going to say that this is fantastic. Thank you both so much. I think this is something that our city solicitor has been pushing us to do, and she was thrilled with the committee minutes that we now approve at each following meeting, and I just commend you both. I think this is fantastic. Whether it goes to ordinance and goes through that way, I'm fine with that as well. So I thank you both.
Thank you. Councilor Matheson.
Thank you. I'm willing to support this in a vote on the floor or refer it to ordinance as the sponsor may deem necessary, but I will second Council Spatafora's motion to suspend docket rules. If we should take that vote now before we engage in debate, I think.
Okay. Councilor Spatafora's. Hold on.
You should take the vote to suspend.
We need a vote first.
I just want to say my rationale with this. Not only the council president requests this, I have no problem referring to ordinance. I have no problems. We're not certainly trying to hide anything. The only thing I would just say is if this full body has no problem with it, instead of gumming up the governmental process, we can vote on the floor and effectively start this tomorrow. Again, I'm not against putting it on a docket and referring to ordinance, but if it's going to go to ordinance and it's going to get a 4-0 vote and be sent back out here for 2 weeks, I think there's been much discussion and debate on this topic the last couple of weeks. This is certainly, I know, something we should have been doing in the first place. I think this is a good process. I'm willing to, there are certain instances where if it's a good idea, let's act on it. But again, I'm not against not sending it to ordinance. I just want to see the reason why under suspension of docket rules. Thank you, Madam President.
Thank you, Councilor Spatafora. Councilor Spatafora's motion to suspend docket rules. All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? Thank you. Councilor Murphy.
Thank you. And once again, I applaud everyone for bringing this paper forward. I guess, as Councilor Crowe always likes to say, the devil's in the details. And my question is regarding May and November is perfect if we were on top of things. But my question centers around how much of a backlog do we have? And is it something that really can be done in a meeting? Should we maybe say we're going to start and take 2001, 2002, 2003 and do them next month, and just kind of work our way up to actually getting caught up? I don't know how bad the backlog is and how much reading we have to do and how much interaction we're going to have with the city solicitor, but it seems we might need a catch-up period.
Yes.
And that's the only thing that I kind of don't see in here. It's kind of a little restrictive.
Okay.
So that would be my comment.
So Council Murphy, I think the rationale for this would be to change the rules as going forward, meaning that the clerk will schedule these 2 dates, as many dates as possible, but at least it will happen on a recurring basis so we don't go back in that problem.
Okay.
But I think this body can certainly start doing that. We can stop before May, but this is something we want to at least put in the rules that they have to be at least scheduled in May, November. We could schedule it every week if we decided to.
Okay.
But this is just changing the rules that automatically, let's say we catch up next year, clerk will automatically say it's time to do the review of the minutes, schedule it in May. Also, it forces the clerk to remind us to make sure they schedule May and November. This does not limit us to only May and November. This is only just saying this is the mandate that we have to schedule at those times. Correct.
Okay.
Thank you, Madam President.
I wasn't interpreting that in that manner. So.
You good?
Yep, I'm good. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Murphy. Councilor O'Malley.
Thank you. Again, I think that it's considering the questions that are up here tonight. I mean, this is noble. I think we need to do this, but I don't think that we need to rush on doing this. I do think it should appear on a docket. Even just the suspension of docket rules and talking and passing something in the same night that isn't on a docket could be considered an open meeting law violation. These are not things that we should play lightly with. This is something that we absolutely should pass, but it should appear on a docket. We should all have time to digest it. Maybe it's not 5 days, maybe it's 10 days, X, Y, and Z, what the process is. All I'm saying is I think it can at least wait a week for us to pass it. We should let it appear on a docket.
Thank you. Councilor Matheson.
Yeah, thank you. I guess my 2 cents would be if this is making us statutorily compliant, I don't think we need to wait and put it on a docket to simply say, let's follow the statute in this manner. I did hear, although I'm content to do so, I did hear Councilor Murphy make a point about how we're going to catch up with the backlog. I don't see us going back and reading 20, 30, 40 years of executive session minutes, but reading what's been provided here, it seems that we could designate someone such as Council President to approve where there's any questions about old minutes, and I would imagine that she would do that with the consultation of the city solicitor's office, so she'd have a legal opinion about the confidentiality. I don't think it's necessary for all of us to meet and review all of the minutes, particularly minutes that occurred years prior to some people even coming on the council. So I think that's how you might be able to address the backlog as far as being statutorily compliant. I think that's something we could and should start doing as soon as possible, regardless of putting our intention on a docket. So I think that's why we are allowed to suspend docket rules. So that's my feeling on the subject. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilor Kamel.
Yeah, I just wanted to voice my preference. I know this looks good. This is what we should do, but I do want to voice my preference for taking a breath, sending it to Rules and Ordinance. I know it delays it for 2 weeks, but I think it just feels like that's the proper way to do it.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Councilor Winslow.
Yeah, I would second Councilor O'Malley's motion. I do see at least one issue with what's presented, because this says what happens when there's no objection from people, but doesn't have a process to resolve if 2 councilors object. So I think we need some clarification. I think it'd be worth it just to wait. I mean, we could hash that out now, but it may just be worth it to wait and make that change. But I think we need to have a process define when there's a dispute about the minutes. Thank you.
Thank you. And on behalf of the chair, I seemed to think that there was some urgency in this. This paper wasn't drafted to go back to the previous executive session minutes, but for us to move forward. I was trying to hear what you were saying. You know, we have an open meeting law complaint in front of us, so I was working with the mayor's office and the city solicitor's office to see how we could go forward with approving the executive session minutes. So I have no problem putting it into ordinance. I would have preferred to have it, you know, voted out on the floor tonight, but I do think that it's something that we need to discuss. I just want to make sure we get this in place. I don't want it to get into committee and die there for months on end. I would like to see this passed as soon as possible so we can get it in, so we can start to, you know, go back. We can have the city clerk give us, you know, months on end. And it's not necessarily no objection. It's just if we don't get one, then I can approve the minutes. If we get an objection or we get a second objection, then we go together in executive session and we discuss what your objections would be. So I look forward to this discussion in ordinance if that's where you see that it should go this evening. But I did hear you, Ryan, loud and clear that we need to address this issue. It is a huge you know, issue for the city. A couple months ago when I sat on ordinance and I got a stack of papers in front of me, I was in executive session for the majority of those minutes and I didn't feel comfortable voting on them because so much time has lapsed and I don't remember what happened in that meeting. So I think going forward, this is a good start and we need to address these issues and we need to do it, like I said, a couple of times a year to release them. We need to get in the habit of being transparent to the citizens. So I look for you. Yes, sorry. Councilor DiMaria.
Thank you, Madam President. Maybe this is a compromise. If we could respectfully ask the Chair of Ordinance to place it on his docket next week. And once it's discussed, we can suspend docket rules and report it out next week. So it's really a delay of 1 week. If
You passed a rule last year that we can't bring business.
but we could do that with a suspension of docket rules because of the importance of that. So just a suggestion. Thank you.
Okay, Councilor Spatafora.
Yeah, I was going to suggest probably 2 weeks. The only reason why, not to delay it, I would want to have, and this is for the public's interest, I know the committee knows this, I think certainly we're going to have input in terms of days and then if there's disputes, but I want to make sure that we have everything tied up in terms of the process in doing this. I think from my perspective, being I think one of the longest councils up here with Council Condon and Council Anderson, first of all, I agree. I don't recall half those meetings. I would probably say, if I had a guess, probably 80% of those meetings were always lawsuits against the city. It's not as sexy as I think the public might think we do back there. And the reason why I think it's important is because some of those employees, if they're not here, I think it's an easy way we can release those minutes. But if there are current employees here that have sued the city, and there are, we have to have a process in place, especially if there's a dispute, to release those minutes. So I think what I would like to have is somebody from the mayor's office, because, again, we have ongoing lawsuits, and I would want the representative from the mayor's office to be there because sometimes they know something about the complaint that the legal office doesn't, the legal department, and then I want the legal department there just to make sure we're whatever is suggested to change, we don't have to go back to them. So in 2 weeks, I'll ask probably Marie Louise from the mayor's office, as well as probably whoever, at least Attorney Fallon, and then I know Council McNaught is here as well, but the legal staff to attend that meeting so that any suggestions that are made, we can kind of make them that day and then get them out as quick as possible. So I would say at the latest 2 weeks, and I'll have that scheduled with the law office as well as the mayor's office.
Perfect. Thank you.
Madam President.
Next order of business. Oh, excuse me. Yes, on Councilor Spatafora's motion, seconded Councilor Matheson to refer this paper to ordinance. All those in favor? All those opposed? It's been referred. Next order of business. Personal privilege. Councilor Winslow.
Yeah, I just want to congratulate the North Shore Black Women's Association for a wonderful Martin Luther King brunch, again, an award ceremony. Councilor Anderson was the MC, and it's always a wonderful time, and I think all the counselors who made it out there very much enjoyed that. So, and congratulations to the awardees. There are some other events coming up. The Junior Aid Society's having their race on February 10th. Okay, well, I'll let Barbara say more about that. And okay, I'll leave some things for other people, but I thought, you know, that would be, I wanted to mention that, so. But okay, okay, all right, sorry for that, so but yeah, I just encourage people to look at the calendars, and I'll defer to other counselors on other things.
Thank you, Councilor Winslow. Councilor Spatafora.
I'm afraid to say anything now. Councilor Winslow did make a point. I always like to thank the Master of Ceremonies for the North Shore Black Women's Association. I know he's very shy in public, but he seems to come out of his shell at that event. It is something that is near and dear to my heart. One of the founders, Mary Moore, who's a dear friend of my family, and a lovely woman. She started that, and it's always grown and has always recognized contributions in the community, and I know they've done a tremendous job of keeping that alive with the remaining founding members. But Councilor Anderson always takes that event, which, like all events, sometimes gets a little long in the tooth. I mean, every does, but he makes it exciting. He keeps it prompt. He told one gentleman who was ready to speak, he told him to hurry up and start speaking, so I respect him, but it is a great organization. It's a great day to reflect on what Martin Luther King meant to this country, and I always like to give a shout out to Councilor Anderson for doing a marvelous job and really making that a true kind of Malden event. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilor O'Malley.
Thank you, Madam President. This coming Thursday, January 24th at 5:30 p.m., the library will host their annual Triple Threat Trivia at Anthony's on Canal Street. This coming Saturday, the 26th, the Chinese Cultural Connection will be hosting their annual Lunar New Year celebration from 1 to 5 p.m. at the Jenkins Auditorium at Malden High School. And then finally, I believe this will be posted, but I just want to announce now, the Charter Commission will be meeting next Wednesday at 5:30 p.m., I believe here at the Senior Center. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilor Murphy.
Thank you. And we have 3 junior aid ladies here, Councilor Crowe, Councilor DeMaria, and myself. So ladies, feel free to chime in. I happen to be one of the chairs of... No. He's not one of the junior aid ladies. Well, we would love you to come. The junior aid event, of which I am one of the co-chairs, is Sunday, February 10th. It's going to be held at Anthony's on Canal Street. Starts at noon. It goes noon to 3. And this is something that we have been dying to bring back for about 5 years. It is a derby. It is simulcast horse racing. So it's a very, very fun day. It's very interactive. It's very exciting. We want lots of people to come and win money. You can walk up to the window and put your win show place bet down. We'll also have some raffles and a lot of door prizes. It's going to be a great lunch, fun time. And if you are into it, ladies, and you want to wear a fascinator or a hat to make it true derby fashion, we'd suggest that you do that, although you don't have to. And one of the things that we really like about this event is, you know, a lot of events, the husbands don't want to come. This is a really fun event for, you know, men and women, husbands and wives, boyfriends and girlfriends. So we would hope that we would all see you there. It's for a great cause. The Junior Aid Association of Malden is one of the longest continuously running clubs in the city. We are entering our 107th year. Wow. I know. And basically our mission is to support women and children's health issues in Malden and the surrounding community. I can guarantee that 100% of all the funds that we get go directly to our mission. So there's no administrative cost taking out of anything. If anything, we put more money into, we probably make your dollar $1.50 by the time we all finish making our donations. So we would love to see you there. The event's open to the public. The tickets are $40 a piece, and you will have a great time and want us to have it next year. So thank you very much. We hope to see you on February 10th.
Thank you. Councilor Di Maria.
I thank you. I can't believe no one up here has said congratulations to the New England Patriots.
Oh,
I was waiting to see who was going to be the first one to push their button. Are you kidding? What a game that was! So even if they don't win, it was a great game. So good luck, New England Patriots, in the Super Bowl.
Anyone else? Okay. Sure.
Yeah, I just want to mention that we are going to resume the ad hoc committee on Malden Hospital. We have to discuss very briefly an open meeting law complaint about the adequacy of the notice of our last meeting. So if the councilors have an ability to stick around another 5-10 minutes, I don't know how long it's going to take, but I think it is important for all of us to see the nature of this complaint and be compliant with our meeting notices so that we don't fall into this problem recurrently. Thank you.
Thank you. And from the chair, I would like to thank Bobby Knox and the DPW crew for this past weekend during a snow/ice storm that we had. It was a very difficult task to handle. I know I shoveled, and 10 minutes later it looked like I did nothing. And it was a sheet of ice, and it still is a sheet of ice 2 days later. So I appreciate the DPW and all their hard work. Some of them have been going nonstop since Saturday around 10, making sure that the streets were safe. So thank you, Bobby, and the DPW staff. And on Councilor Crow's motion to adjourn, all those in favor? Aye. All those opposed? Good night, everyone.